Hey everyone, sorry about that. I forgot to set up my audio. How's everyone doing? Looks like we're live. Hopefully everybody sees us. We are. Is everyone here? Are we live? Hopefully we are live. Did the intro. Yes, we are live, I think. Welcome everyone. Sorry, it's a little bit experimental here. Tried a new sort of like a spin-off of my podcast here on the second channel as more of a little bit of a casual, not quite as tightly regimented or planned version of the podcast. So I'm here with my good friend Shelly Shaska. How you doing, Shelly?
I'm doing excellently. Thank you for having me on your show.
Yeah,
Always a pleasure to sit down and chat with you, my friend.
absolutely. So here we are. We're going to be ranking the James Bond films. So let me pop out that chat so I can kind of see the comments and whatnot.
So, so yesterday, you and we had a call and we started chatting. And in our typical fashion, when we decide to have one conversation, it breaks off into three or four or five or six several different tangents. And one of those tangents happened to be James Bond movies.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so, yeah. And so we just sort of started talking about some James Bond movies and thought, like, hey, why don't we just do a show where we rank the Bond movies?
Yeah, it's a little.
And
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
no, that's all.
Yeah, I know it's a little off-brand. We normally comment on video games and whatnot, but I thought it'd be a little fun to kind of mix up a bit. I'm actually streaming to as a film and rather than a gaming video, as a film and animation video. So anyway, we'll see how this works. So
Yeah.
as you can see, we've got some fun tiers here. Basically, we've got some up here. We've got golden, which is going to be, okay, that's great. I have the spell checker on there. That's awesome. We have golden, which is like a S tier. We have shaken not
Golden
stirred.
standard.
Yeah, golden standard, like golden gun. Can't get any better. Shaken not stirred. This is like A plus, really hot stuff. And then we've got right on the money penny, which it's really a overall decent film, but could be better. On His Majesty's Secret Serviceable, which is like mediocre, not great, not terrible. Doctor Nope, generally not one of the best, not one of the shining moments of Mr. Bond, and then Double O Nothing, which is just absolute trash tier. So. And from our brief conversation yesterday, we definitely had some disagreements on what was great and what was bad. Like some of my absolute least favorites were some of Shalashaska's more appreciated ones. So
I
yeah,
am an apologist for what I like, and I make no qualms about it.
exactly. All right.
So,
So cool.
so are we gonna do in chronological order,
Yeah, I
like
think I
order
think
of
that's
release?
I think that's probably the simplest way. We have a little refresher. I just finally watched not the latest, but the one Bond film I had not seen, which was Living Daylights. That was the one I missed. But I finally watched that recently. I recently watched GoldenEye. Some of these, to be frank, I've not seen for quite a while, but we have a little refresher guide to kind of refresh our memory on the major events here.
Yeah,
So, starting in
yeah. We're
1962, we've got Doctor No.
just before we're both Bond fans, and as many times as we might have seen the movies, there are details we don't remember. So
Yeah,
we're just keep in mind we're just going off our memory as best as we can with some like guides to help jog it. But it's not like we've watched the movies and we're sitting here to talk, you know, deeply analytically about the films in any capacity. Some of these films I haven't seen in years.
yeah, exactly. So, these are some of these are a little bit rusty, but as strong as the James Bond imagery is, we'll definitely like recall, oh yeah, I remember that moment, or I remember that guy, or whatever. And some of
For
these
sure.
movies I've not seen since VHS, but I remember distinctly very clear scenes. So
Yeah.
it'd be good to review them all at some point, but frankly, ain't got anybody, nobody got time for that. So
Well, at least not in our neck of the woods. But anyway, as you were saying, Doctor No.
so Doctor No, 1962. That's crazy. Yeah, I just realized it celebrated its 50th anniversary not too long ago. Um,
Yeah.
uh, Gosh, like 9 years ago. Jeez. Um,
Yeah.
So here we
I
got.
remember Doctor No was a slow movie, from what I remember. Now it's been a few years, but definitely one of the more slower, more methodical, I guess, Bond films, which is like what you expect because it's the first one.
Yeah, I think they're trying to find their footing. And obviously, I think Sean Connery was a fantastic choice for Bond. And I remember distinctly Dr. No. I believe it was Dr. No, where like he was entering a casino or something like that, and there was like smoky rooms and moody lighting, and just him walking up to the bar and saying Bond, James Bond. It's just like that kind of crackly 1960s audio. It was just like so iconic. So you got to
Yeah.
give it props for just kind of setting the tone of the entire series. But story wise, not the best. I would actually say a pretty mediocre
No.
story as far as the
Yeah,
story is concerned.
very mediocre. But talking about that casino scene, it also has that iconic clip of Sean Connery where he's sitting at the table and he has like a cigarette dangling from
Yeah.
his mouth, and he just kind of lights the scene you're talking about, and it's just that image that is the image of James Bond when you break it down, really.
Yeah, he just got
So
that cigarette just like like casual, like he could fall out and he doesn't care. He just like got cigarette
yeah,
out there and he's just like, and it's like, yeah, the smoky rooms and everything. That's just such an
yeah,
iconic visual of this sort of slick, charming, but had like a layer of dangerousness under him, the international secret agent. So yeah, I think that for just for the fact that it kind of set the stage, it has to get somewhere. But like as far as the plot, I know that there was that whole uh, radiation aspect of it where like they're getting deradiated and stuff. That was kind of interesting, especially in the
mm,
60s. You know, it was definitely at the height of the Cold War. Oh my God, we're going to
yeah,
get bombed by the Russians kind of fear. So definitely kind of played off of that. Every
yeah,
Bond film is definitely a product of its time. It all has something to
yeah,
say about the
yeah.
time. But I would probably like just because I would probably argue. Where is it here, Doctor No? Oof. Hopefully it's here. It was here earlier. Yeah, there it is. I would argue right on the money penny. Like not bad, not great, but because it kind of set the stage, it gets like bumped up one for me. What do you think?
I can see why you think that. I just think that even with the fact that it's a first outing, it's still among one of the weaker movies. I would put it at like more serviceable personally,
So
just
to one tier
because.
down.
Yeah, I would put it at one tier down, only because I know it's trying to find its footing. I know it's the first movie. I know it's kind of setting the stage, and I know it's just eclipsed by all the other movies, even by the next movie
Yeah,
from Russia with Love. It just takes it up a tier right away, and then it just kind of leaves Doctor No in the dust a little bit for me.
yeah.
And I'll be honest, like Doctor No, I like him as a villain, but he's not one of the more memorable villains either. When you compare them to later villains, like it's just he's always an
Yeah, it wasn't a strong villain. All I really remember is like the introduction to James Bond. I mean, it also introduced John Barry's theme song, which is still used today. It's such an
yes,
iconic piece of music.
yeah.
So I probably am a lot more sentimental to it than I should be. Objectively, as a
It-
film, not that great, but like it introduced such a legacy that I kind of have to.
mm,
I'm a bit more partial to it. But yeah, as
yeah.
far as he only kills four people in that. There's
Yeah, I know. It's such a small body count,
he's almost
which is
one to
what I
one
was saying
on.
earlier.
Sorry.
It's that more methodical movie. It's more methodical. It's more of that thinking piece. The drama is the conspiracy, right?
Yeah.
It's and there's nothing wrong with that, but like it definitely became more action oriented as it went later on. I'm looking at chat and it looks like that I'm the unpopular now, according to Jason.
You are now the unpopular.
I am
Yeah,
now the unpopular.
but I gotta say, a 4-3 kill to shag ratio is pretty good. So at least he got his Bond on. But yeah, yeah. No car, no gadgets. Wow, that's like they introduced so much, but yet the kind of iconic like every new film has a different sort of Aston Martin or whatever. Like they hadn't quite introduced that yet. So
Yeah.
interesting. Definitely set a lot up, but honestly, like wasn't the best plot or movie and everything like that. But definitely some iconic imagery.
Yeah, definitely. If we want to put up the money penny, I'm okay with that. But that's just kind of why I'm arguing for secret serviceable.
Yeah, I mean, as a movie, I definitely agree with you that it's that. The only reason I would argue higher just because it was the first. It like set so many things that kind of stayed. It introduced Sean Connery, rest in peace, Sean Connery. It introduced, the theme song and the style and everything, and just that iconic casino, scene where he just like going down there is like Bond, James Bond, and I can't get over how much I love that sort of old microphone from like the 60s, like very crackly, very compressed sound. It just has such
Yeah,
a interesting timbre to it, and it's very iconic at the time, and you really can't replicate that now.
yeah.
So
It's definitely iconic for what it was or for what it is,
y-
But it's a first step. It gets better. Let me put it that way. It gets better.
yeah, it gets better, then it gets worse, then it gets really worse, then it gets
Right.
better.
And here's a fun fact to think about with Doctor No. Like, just in the case of what we're talking about, the production designer only had 20,000 pounds to build the set. When you
That's a very
compare that to
small
the
amount, even for
budget,
the 60s. Yeah,
even for the 60s, which where, and we're talking about 20,000 pounds in the 60s, it's not a small amount of money. But when you compare it to the budgets of the other movies, obviously that's minuscule comparatively.
yeah. Oh God, was Spartacus around that time? I'm thinking.
Spartacus
Yeah, yeah.
was.
For example, Spartacus was 1960, so 2 years before.
Yeah.
That
Mhm.
costed 12 million. So,
Yeah.
relatively speaking, I mean, Spartacus was an epic. You got a lot of, props. You got a lot of extras, things like that. But comparatively, that's a minuscule budget compared to something like Spartacus. So,
Yeah, but that was also a Kubrick film, though. So, like, when you have Kubrick at the helm saying, "Listen, I want to make this project," it's a little easier to get funding for something that massive.
yeah, exactly. So next up is 1963's From Russia with Love. So they followed up the next year. That's pretty cool. This I think is definitely where the lot of the like the second half of the kind of traditional Bond, uh, staples and trademarks were introduced. We first see Blofeld. We get a green Bentley, I guess, is their car. Get some gadgets, exploding
Mhm.
briefcase, sniper rifle, tear gas. A lot of really like it kind of fills in the other half of the traditional stuff. There's always new gadgets every time. There's always a new car. So the second movie, From Russia with Love, definitely kind of completes the Bond experience in a lot of ways. And I remember
Yes.
enjoying it. I think it was a pretty solid film.
Yeah, it sets the bar higher because now you have a more action-oriented plot, and it is a direct sequel because now you have Spectre trying to get their revenge for the death of Doctor No.
Yeah.
Um, uh, no, I think the bathtub scene where he says shocking that you only live twice. No, maybe it is. Maybe it is. Yeah, maybe that death is anyway.
We can
But
look it
yeah,
up.
it sets the bar much higher. And then now you also have that helicopter chase, the boat chase, rather than just a car chase. You have the fight on the train, and I think this also sort of establishes Bond as like the kind of womanizer. If I'm not mistaken, this is the movie where he tells the Bond girl, "Leave now while the men are talking," and then like just smacks her on the ass. Do you
Yeah,
know
I
the
mean,
scene I'm talking about? Is this movie or is this another one?
I mean, Sean Connery was such a Chad, but they're definitely products of their time. That wouldn't fly today, but I mean, I'll put it this way: wouldn't fly today, but many women in the 60s would probably not object for being, approached by Mr. Connery in his prime. Just following that up, positively shocking was Goldfinger. So that
Yeah, okay,
definitely
it
set
was
Gold.
Goldfinger. Yeah, okay, it
Yeah.
was Goldfinger.
So
Yeah, I knew it wasn't this one, but
yeah, so this one was a
man, it's
solid
been a
one.
while.
I don't remember a ton of things about it. I remember distinctly, yeah, there was this sort of like Russian girl that he ends up with. The ratio, the stats are a
She
lot
was a
better in this
KGB
one.
agent. Yeah, she was a KGB agent, I think,
Yeah,
in
I
this
think she was
movie.
KGB, and I think she flips or something like that. Um, yeah,
Well, she was working with Bond because of the conspiracy that Spectre was doing to pit the UK and the Soviet Union at each other because they stole the cipher.
yeah,
And so it's both governments working together to try and diffuse the plot.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And so that, 1960s Cold War was all on our minds. Russia was always the big bad. So yeah, a lot of these early movies were definitely about Russia. And as we'll get into later, interestingly enough, after the fall of the Soviet Union, you get to see a little bit of that in like GoldenEye, which I actually find is not to spoil that part, but I actually find that interesting because it's like a post-Soviet, Russia kind of thing.
Yeah,
So that's
it's a
kind
good
of
plot
interesting.
setup.
Yeah, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. So Russia with Love, stats are a little bit better. Yeah, we get introduced to new gadgets and stuff like that, and he kills twice as many people in Russia with Love than in the first film. So he's got
yeah.
eight kills, four shags. So his stats are definitely going up. So I would say that's at least a right on the money penny. What do you think?
At
Shaken not
least,
stirred or right on the money penny? I don't remember enough
at
about
least.
it. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I say at least it's right on the money, Petty. I think it's definitely a tier up from Doctor No.
Yeah,
And I still think that as much as they're trying to establish that Bond formula, they do a better job with From Russia with Love to the point where it was made into a video game for some reason.
yeah.
Uh, I don't know if I'd put it up as Shaken Not Stirred because it's still kind of held back a little bit by those early movies where it hasn't reached that critical acclaim yet. It's a good movie, it's a memorable movie, and it's one I enjoy rewatching, but it's definitely one that still has that room for improvement to really solidify what it means to be Bond.
Yeah, I remember after
Because
finishing it, I was like, this was fine, but I wasn't like, man, that was a good
that's it.
one. Yeah,
Yeah, that was fine. It was
yeah,
fine.
yeah. Like back in the '90s, my mom and I would actually like every week go to the movie store and pick out another Bond film, and we ended up watching almost every single one back to back. At the time, obviously, some came out since then. So we did a lot of the older ones, and yeah, no. Some of the older ones I was actually surprisingly digging, and some of them were just truly awful. But I remember being like, oh, that was good, but like I didn't. Nothing was super standout in Russia with Love, so I'd say it's like it's good but not great.
Right. I agree.
So
All right.
so
Doctor Goldfinger. James Bond is back in
Goldfinger.
action, mixing thrills and girls. This is the poster for Goldfinger.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah, I wish I could easily screen share this. I guess I could, but uh,
Yeah,
yeah, I could probably do that.
What's to say about Goldfinger that hasn't already been said? Like
Yeah,
this is the quintessential Bond movie. Like
yeah,
this is it. When I think James Bond, the first movie I think of has to be Goldfinger,
yeah. Like
without a doubt.
imagine if you wrote a tagline like this today.
Mixing thrills and girls.
Uh, yeah, you'd be off Twitter in 3 seconds. So yeah, this is definitely what I think. This is when the Bond series got really comfortable. It like they kind of tried a little bit more flair, a little bit more. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to do Control Tab. Yes.
Well,
Oh no, I broke something. What'd I do? Okay, hang on. There we go. We're back. Um,
all right, excellent.
so yeah, no, I think this is when the series got a lot more comfortable with its sort of formula. I mean, this is like a you know they did this like every year. Damn, that's like quite a lot to knock out one of these things every year. I guess they did also have books to kind of just base the screenplays off of, so it
Yeah,
probably
for the
helped.
most part. Yeah.
But yeah, I know we got the Aston Martins. We got oh god, P word galore. I don't
Yeah.
know if that's a YouTube friendly word, but got
Oh,
Odd
I don't
Job.
know.
Odd Job. This is like a classic movie. It's got Odd Job. It's got uh, Cat Galore.
Yeah.
It's got
Yeah.
obviously he turns people into gold. Come on, isn't that
Are
pretty?
we gonna
That's
call?
gangster.
Okay, when we get, hang on. When we get to talking about that movie, are we gonna call it Octocat now? Like, come on, like
Octokitty. There we go.
Octokitty,
It's probably fine.
Octokitty.
I just yeah I never know
No, no, I
what
get it.
YouTube's
But
gonna
yeah,
flag. So
you have in one of those iconic scenes, you know, where she says, you know, I'm Kitty Galore. Well, must be dreaming. Because of course it's a double entendre in the '60s. Like, how shocking would it have been to like see that at that time period?
Yeah, I remember
And
reading
this
a
is
quote. Go
yeah.
ahead.
Mm, go. What's your quote?
Yes. So Kitty Galore says, "My name is Kitty Galore. Bond, I must be dreaming. You're a woman of many parts, Kitty." So very much, yeah, they knew what they were doing. So it was
Oh
very,
yeah.
very, it was getting a little bit more raunchy. For the 60s, that was super raunchy. Come on. Yeah, so
Extremely, extremely. But also the plot, it was unique because it was still like an espionage movie, but it wasn't your typical like Cold War-esque, Soviet. It didn't even have Spectre in it, from what I remember. It was just Goldfinger wanted to irradiate the gold reserve at Fort Knox, putting it out of use, and then he'll just flood the market with his own gold. Wow, this is like an Elon Musk-esque plot, isn't it?
yeah, this is a little bit more, it kind of like how Batman Begins and The Dark Knight Rises are kind of a continuation of the same story. Yet The Dark Knight, albeit arguably the best of the trilogy, is almost like a big, really, really good side quest.
Yeah.
I'd actually argue Goldfinger's kind of fits in that category where,
Yeah.
it's not part of the overall Spectre, plot with Blofeld, but it is a really entertaining movie and a lot of memorable moments and yeah, just like iconic stuff, like you
Yeah.
know some of
Also,
yeah. Go ahead.
oh, sorry. Also, the first movie with a new theme song, the Goldfinger song, right?
Oh, was it? Is that true? That's a
Because
pretty
the
big thing.
previous two movies, yeah, the previous two movies just use that Bond theme, right? That opens up every movie. This is the one that had that iconic Goldfinger song.
Oh, I think you're right. Yeah, James Bond theme by Goldberry, Goldfinger sung by Shirley Bassey. So yeah, this is kind of like the trifecta where they added the final piece to the puzzle, where every new James Bond movie gets its own theme song, often sung by a very popular artist at the time. So yeah, Goldfinger. I don't remember the rest of it. I just remember
Mhm.
the opening part. But yeah, that's actually great. So it's like you got the first movie establishes the James Bond theme. It establishes the character, the actor, the tone, all that kind of stuff. The second movie introduces the cars and the gadgets and more killing, more women, etc. The third movie
Mhm.
introduces the theme song, and so that for that reason it's kind of iconic. I
Mhm.
would probably put it up into Shaken Not Stirred. I don't know if it's golden territory.
Oh, oh, it's golden territory, baby.
It's golden territory.
Like I said,
What does the
for
chat
me,
think?
it's golden. For me, it's golden. For me, it is the ultimate Bond movie. You have the introductions of the first singable theme songs. You have an airtight plot where it might not be Spectre related, might not be related to the Soviet Union, but it's compact. It's clever. It's well written. You have the inclusion of one of the most iconic henchmen, without a doubt. You have one of the most iconic Bond girls, and then you have a car, the Aston Martin, with a whole slew of the weapons and gadgets. Like you have the oil slick, the wheel blades, you have that bulletproof screen when he pulls it up. Remember? And that shocking, positively shocking death.
Positively shocking.
Uh, Positively shocking. And not to mention the fucking scene where he's on the table and he's, do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. Doesn't get better than that. That is Bond. For me,
Yeah, that is a
Goldfinger is
pretty
golden. It's in the
iconic
name.
thing. Oh yeah, yeah, that's a scene where like they have he's on the table and they try to cut him in half with a
Yeah,
laser, right? Yeah, that's an iconic
yeah.
that's like the iconic over the top, way too complicated way to kill Bond. That's like another part of the trademark. It's like they don't just shoot the guy; they put him into some incredibly complicated,
Machine. Yeah.
convoluted machine of death rather than just shooting him. But that's like totally Bond. I mean, as far as like
Yeah.
raw stats, a little bit down from Rush with Love, 6 kills, 2 shags, but you're right, it does have a lot of iconic moments, and I actually thought that the actual plot, like them basically contaminating Fort Knox with radiation and then going in and
Yeah.
stealing all the gold, that's actually was a pretty clever idea. That actually like, that'd probably work. So
It would.
I remember thinking it was pretty clever. It wasn't
I
like
remember,
we're going to send a satellite into space and laser people from the moon. It was more just like it was yeah, exactly. It was more like, hey, I'm Goldfinger, and I want to get lots of gold. It was more.
Hey, it's me, Goldfinger. I'm gonna get a whole bunch of gold. Just
Eh,
gonna build stockpiles of it.
yeah, it's me, Goldfinger. You remember James Bond?
James Bond. And then I remember that one scene. So iconically when he has that group of everybody sitting in the room, and it's like, we're gonna raid Fort Knox. What, Goldfinger? You're insane. What's the difference between Fort Knox and a bank? It's a bank. Yes, it is much more well guarded. Yes, there is more. It's harder to get in, but gentlemen, it is a bank nonetheless. And then the guys, they all like, yeah, well, you're insane. We're never gonna go through with this plot. And he ends up just killing them. It's like, okay, fine,
Yeah.
you're not gonna help me. You all die, and he murders them all.
Yeah, it was definitely a fun villain, and I remember just the kind of it kind of established like early on when he sees, I think he goes back in the room and the girl's like completely covered head to toe
Oh,
with gold or whatever. It's like a very,
gold paint,
it
yeah,
shows that he's dealing with somebody who's not only dangerous but also has a sense of style. Like he wants to make an
yeah,
impression. So that was
yeah,
that's actually a really good summary of the movie. It's like this movie made an impression on you. It was, you definitely remember Goldfinger if you've seen it. So you've kind of
yeah.
sold me. I think it's probably, pardon the pun, probably golden tier. So where is it
It's the
here?
Persona 4 Golden of Bond movies. This is Golden tier.
Golden tier. Funnily enough, I think there's at least one other. There's at least one other Bond, two other Bond films with gold in the name. Yeah, that's right. At least two
Yeah,
other ones.
several. Okay, so what? Goldfinger, Man with the Golden Gun, GoldenEye.
I think that's it.
Yeah, those are. Yeah, I think that might be it.
Nice. So we got our first golden tier, Goldfinger, fitting.
Yeah, there we go.
So Thunderball next year. Wow, they did like all these back to back. Crazy.
All right. So Thunderball, part one of the trilogy. And I say that because they remade this movie not once but twice.
Yeah, we're covering only the official Eon Productions,
Okay.
the Broccoli
Yep.
films. So we're not covering any of the unofficial spin-offs that would get complicated. So yeah, we're just covering the mainline series for now.
And since we're only talking about the Eon films, I'm going to correct that and say they've remade this film once in the Eon film.
Yeah, this one was a
As
weird
far as
one.
Eon ones go.
Yeah, I don't remember it being all that great, but it's just weird that they would remake it officially and unofficially. So
Okay.
maybe
So
because it
I
wasn't
will
great.
say the best part about Thunderball is while the and yeah, Crossington, you're absolutely right. The filming, the technology they use to get those underwater scenes, wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And I will say that I love the villain. I think Emilio Largo is a great villain. He was, and I think Domino too. Domino was a good Bond girl. But overall, it's not that. It's not the best movie. It's okay.
Yeah, I think
It's
this began a trend.
not that memorable.
This became a trend that would later be definitely picked up in the Roger Moore films of like the exotic location Bond film. So here we got
Yeah.
that kind of water themed, underwater stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, filming that, especially with 1960s technology, must have been quite a breakthrough. But it wasn't really a standout to me. Um, I don't remember the theme song.
It was
Apparently,
Thunderball by Tom Jones. Tom Jones did the theme song.
I don't remember it. I remember a lot of the theme
Uh,
songs, but that one didn't really stick with me. So I'm like, it's probably a good song, but I didn't remember it. But
uh,
yeah, I remember some of the underwater scenes being pretty cool. And as anyone knows, it's really really difficult to film underwater. Camera equipment is super super sensitive. They didn't have cameras that could go underwater like they do today. They probably had to put them in bulky cases and things like that to keep it
mhm.
from leaking into the camera equipment. And you have to go down for brief shots before you have to either refill oxygen or if you have somebody underwater without oxygen, you have to like do a take, gasp for air, get ready again, and do another take. So like makes obviously doing any action or any filming really difficult. So props to him for that. But yeah, overall, I don't think it was a super standout film. What's your thoughts, Shalatoska?
Speaking, oh, hang on. Before we go on to that, speaking about gasping for air, um, fun note is Tom Jones when he was recording the theme song for Thunderball, he actually fainted in the in the recording booth
Oh
while singing
man.
that final note. Um, And here's another fun fact since I brought this up about the theme song. Johnny Cash submitted a song to Eon called Thunderball, and it
Oh,
was
really?
never used.
Well,
Yeah,
see, that I'd like to hear. Actually, I like a lot of Cash's stuff.
I love Cash. I could never imagine him doing a Bond theme,
Yeah, that would have
but
been
there
very
you go.
weird.
Yeah.
But
Now, what are my thoughts? Like, it's like you said. I think that you're spot on with the technology used to film some of the scenes and the elaborate and how elaborate it was. Absolutely spot on for that. As a production, wonderful. Um, but as a movie, it was kind of underwhelming, really. Like I said, I like Largo, I like Domino, but he's going after, and I love this because the website I'm using for the plot summary. Bond is sent on a quest to find two NATO atomic bongs stolen by Spectre. Not bombs, bongs.
bongs, yeah,
Um,
spell
yeah, but
check.
it's like, oh, we're gonna ransom the world 100 million diamonds. We're gonna use gold. It's like, well, you're ransoming the UN. It's like, really, that's your ultimate goal is you have Spectre, and they're just gonna. It's meh. It's meh.
Yeah, I remember a couple of the gadgets and stuff being kind of neat. Like I remember the cool underwater propellers that they'd ride to go faster underwater. That was a kind of neat little gimmick. And apparently was the
Yeah.
most deadly Bond up to that point with 9 kills.
Hmm.
But that would be quickly outpaced with the next one. So overall, I'd probably say green tier, like middle ground, right? Not
Yeah,
not bad, not
serviceable.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I'd put it there too. Fun fact: up until the release of Live and Let Die, it was the highest grossing Bond film in the series. So up until the first Roger Moore film.
Yeah, that happens a lot with sequels where the inferior sequels get more money than uh, the movies that came before it. Just because
Yeah,
name
Goldfinger.
recognition and stuff like that. Like famously,
Hmm.
The Matrix made about 400, I want to say 450 million in the box office. Matrix Reloaded made double that, and Revolutions
Yeah,
made a little over what the original made. But
yeah,
looking back at it, everybody loves the original the best for the most part.
yeah,
So
and I definitely think the strength of Goldfinger heightened the sales for Thunderball. Like I think
yeah,
that's absolutely what happened. So
yeah, that happens a lot, and that's why one bad game, even if it sells a lot, can like even movies as well. One bad title in a franchise can do a lot of brand damage. So you
mm,
actually get that quite often get that peak where the previous titles were so good, people are anticipating the next one, and so you quite often it happens that one of the worst in the series actually makes some of the most money, and then damages the brand, and so the succeeding ones actually get less money, even though they might be
yeah,
better than that one, just because that's where the brand damage happened. So
yeah,
it's an
no,
interesting business side of it. So yeah, middle of the road,
for sure.
not great, not terrible, just fine.
No. But it does have an interesting legacy because Thunderball was supposed to be the original Bond movie. Because of contract dispute with the screenplay with Ian Fleming and Eon Productions, that is why eventually the plot of this film would be remade into Never Say Never Again, much down the line with that non-canon Bond movie. But
Yeah,
that
yeah,
set the stage for it.
yeah. That was a weird little bit of history there. So here they took a 2 year gap actually. They for You Only Live Twice. Now I remember this one. This one starts out with Bond dying, quote unquote,
Yep.
and so he
Yep.
like dies, and then I think they pull him out of the water, like pull his coffin out of the water, and he's actually alive. So like they basically
Yeah.
put him under deep cover, under the cover of death, basically,
Hmm.
to go into like a deep mission or whatever. Which is one of the kind of
Hmm.
funny things about James Bond when you think about it. Like, if you were supposed to be a secret agent, would you be throwing your name around every 5 seconds? Probably not. Would you be like the much more practical approach would be something like the Saint or whatever, where you come up with new identities each time you ideally not with a theme, so people can detect the theme of you having names of saints, but come up with a new accent, new name, new facial hair, new hair, whatever. But Bond's Bond. He
Basically,
doesn't care.
yeah, basically what I did in between missions and Alpha Protocol when I go to every new location.
Yeah, exactly.
Just get the big lumberjack beard and you know.
Yeah. So here we
So,
here we see a return of Blofeld. Um, and this is
well, actually, first appearance of Blofeld, the very first appearance of
uh
Blofeld on
did
screen,
they
because
actually did they
previous
actually
movie was
show us?
Largo.
They
Yeah.
hinted at Blofeld earlier in I want to say oh they had Kron no they had Blofeld in Russia with Love, but I think you might have only seen him like from the shadows. I remember the first appearances you see him, you don't
Mm.
really see his face. So I think with Donald Pleasance, you probably see his face for the first time. Before he was kind of like shadowy in rooms, see like maybe see the back of his head. I don't know the exact on Russia with Love, but it does say that he Blofeld did appear in that one.
Okay. Okay.
So
Well, then definitely the first one is the main villain. So maybe not the
yeah,
first camera appearance, but
yeah,
yeah. But
and,
we're back to a Cold War plot with a spaceship that has been hijacked, and they think it's the Soviets. So,
yeah,
with Japanese involvement. So this is James Bond in Japan. This is how I remember You Only Live Twice.
yeah. And this has the iconic "would never ever fly today" transformation scene where you take a how tall was Sean Connery? He was like 6 foot something.
Six something. I think he was like
Uh,
6'4" or something.
yeah, a deep voiced Scottish man who's was 6'2" at his prime. You bring him over to Japan and you put on
Six
some
two.
racially insensitive makeup, stretch his eyes out, and
Slightly.
and like put a wig and everything like that, and everybody's supposed to believe that he's actually Japanese. So aside
Yeah, I
from
mean,
yeah, that was a pretty silly plot point.
yeah, I mean, it just looks terrible. It like even by that point, it just looked dated and terrible. But it was what it was. Let's be honest, we're not judging these
Yeah,
morality.
it
We're
was a
just
it was a
looking at
product
this
of its
as
time. Definitely wouldn't fly today. He doesn't really look Japanese at all, but we're supposed to believe that he's
nope.
like he's a master disguise, and despite him being like a foot taller than everyone else in the country.
Yeah. And so he trains in a secret ninja compound to go into this secret volcano base in Japan, where we have Spectre. They are trying to start World War III by using a rocket to launch a rogue spaceship that attacks both Russian and US ships. It's basically the monster that appears or the alien that appears at the end of Watchmen, but except that here it's Spectre trying to start World War III. And we're going to have the two of them blow each other up.
Yeah. So interesting plot. Yeah. I don't think a ton of stuff really stands out, but I did like the setup. The setup was really good. The idea that you're like, oh wow, he's dead, and then it kind of like pulls the fast one on you, and then that kind of sets a different tone. Ties in with the title of the movie, obviously, and
Well,
this was also the deadly Bond film by a pretty large margin. Previous film Thunderball was 9 kills. This is all the way up to 14. So, full on 50% increase on kills. So, um, uh,
I'll be honest. I like this movie quite a bit.
oh, okay.
Partially, like the plot was, it's fine. It's a step up from just let's ransom the United Nations, har har har. With a little more clandestine back and forth. I like the setting in Japan, which was different because everything else thus far was very Euro-centric. You know what I mean? Um, well, I mean, in the first movie, he did go to Jamaica, but it was still you're still dealing with a very European regimented
Yeah,
film structure. This is a little bit more exotic, shall we say? And as a result, his car changes to a Toyota because of Japan, of course, which I just find fun. But the auto gyro, the little like the gyro helicopter that he's in, I think that's one of the coolest things that we saw in the movie. I thought I quite like You Only Live Twice, honestly.
here's a really weird fact about this movie. The same year that Roald Dahl wrote Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, he's most famous for writing Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. He wrote You Only Live Twice. Isn't that weird? Like what a weird tonal shift from like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory to
to a Bond film.
yeah. That's odd.
Oh man.
So, I think. Oh well, we got ninjas invading a crater at the end. That automatically brings it up to gold tier. Um, I would
Yeah.
say probably right on the
Okay,
money.
that was awesome.
I would say probably right on the money penny. Like a decent film, not
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, decent film. Okay, so that
yeah. I'd put that
was
there as well. It's a good movie. Like it's a good movie, but mm, I don't know. All right on the money penny, but or is it shaken not stirred? Because I do think it's by default. I think it's stronger than From Russia with Love.
huh.
Oof, that's a tough one. That's a tough one.
Yeah, but it's also like another kind of Cold War, sparking World War III kind of thing as well.
Well, let's be honest. If we're going by that metric, then we're going to be stuck with that until GoldenEye.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's like it was getting a little bit tired. It was kind of like
Yeah.
rehashing a similar conflict. So I would put it on the same tier. I don't think it's really what we shaken not stirred tier. That's my opinion, but
Okay. All right. Yeah, no, that's fine. All right. Right on the money, Petty. Personally, I might put it up, shaken not stirred, because Blofeld was awesome too. Crossington's right. The presence of Blofeld is great.
yeah,
But all right. Right on the money, Penny. Right on the money, Penny.
I can't even read this. Is this the uh, far up, far out, far more? I can't even see which cover this is.
Can you zoom in on the
License to
screen?
Kill, Live and Let Die. It's got to be one of these. I'm thinking it's got to be that one. Oh, that's Secret Service. So Live and Let Die. Dang, is it not on this list? It's got to be on this list.
It should be. Can you zoom
License to
into your
Kill.
screen?
I did, and I'm not seeing it here. View to a Kill, Casino Royale, Diamonds Are Forever, Die Another Day, For Yours Only, GoldenEye, License to Kill, Live and Let Die, Living Daylights, Moonraker, Octopussy, oops, Octokitty, um, Honor Majesty, Secret Service, Quantum of Solace, Skyfall, Spectre, Spy Love Me, Man with Golden. Yeah,
Right
it's
there,
not.
the last one.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah,
You
duh.
only went twice. The
Yeah,
very
yeah,
last
yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, my
The one
bad.
where he's surrounded by the women.
God, that's a lot of women. It's false advertising though, because according to this, he's only two shags, so only two of those women he actually was intimate with. So false advertising.
Yep. And
Cool.
one of them was Akiko Wakabayashi. So,
There you
mm.
go.
You know what? I think her alone would help elevate that movie because she is was at the time very very attractive.
I remember the lead there was very very pretty. I mean, obviously Bond girls are always very very pretty, but
Yeah, of course.
for the most part. But Vito Kill not so much. But yeah, so next one, I think this will be our first big disagreement because I think we talked about this a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb. I personally think that Honor Majesty's Secret Service is one of the best Bond films. I actually really, really enjoyed
Oof.
that.
No.
I know George Lazenby wasn't a particularly popular Bond. They only brought him in for one movie and then they scrapped him. But hear me out. This is the movie where first of all, they've got like they kind of did the first like kind of exotic resort thing. I don't remember that being in too many films before then. I think there's like a skiing lodge or something like that up in the mountains. There's a lot of skiing scenes. I actually used to listen to the soundtrack of like one of the chase scenes all the time. I actually love the soundtrack of this one a lot. Really, really good orchestral soundtrack. I don't remember. Oh, actually, this one doesn't have a theme song. This one just has the James Bond theme. It doesn't have a,
Mhm.
that would be a terrible song. It's like, on Her Majesty's Secret Service.
I'm
But
sure you can make it work. I'm not a
yeah,
musician, so I couldn't. But
it'd be tough. But yeah, honestly, Lazenby probably, he's serviceable, but not my favorite Bond at all. But I think he gets a bad rap. Um, you know, the stats, the kills 7, shags 3, not particularly memorable. But what I will say, this is probably the biggest arc for Bond in any of the films up to this point, because not only does he I think we first kind of see under his sort of like ladies' man shell, he actually gets to this girl, and they kind of escape and fall in love. At the end, he marries her. Spoiler alert, sorry. And then, spoiler, 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 she dies. So like, I think that was definitely a really big turning point in his life and his, morality. And I like we said yesterday, Shalashowska, this would be an awesome point to go darker with Bond following this.
Yeah. Hmm.
Unfortunately, this great leaping point was basically just dropped in the next movie. They just did Bond as usual in the next film. They kind of ignored the fact that he got married and that his wife was assassinated and things like that. So I think it was a great leaping off point and had an interesting kind of like dynamic more so than most of the films. But what are your thoughts on the film?
I think it's a regression in pretty much every way. So, notwithstanding the cynical, darker, edgier Bond, which I like, which I really, really do like, and as we were saying yesterday, and just jumping ahead a little bit, if this movie linked directly, or if it came a little later in the Bond filmography and it linked directly to the Dalton movies, I would have a stronger like for it because then it would create the story arc that would be pointed off, that would be leaned into really, really nicely. But as a film, like as a follow up to the Sean Connery movies we've gone so far, it's a regression in every way. It's like you said, they go back to a non theme song. You have the plot where Blofeld's back, so he's the villain again. Nothing wrong with Blofeld, but his plot, like his big plan is we're gonna brainwash these women to deliver this bacterial agents around the world, and we're gonna destroy the world's food source. And then, what do they eat? Like, we're just going to destroy the world's agriculture.
Uh,
Why? You, Blofeld, you need agriculture just like we do. What's your goal here?
Yeah, it's
It
a
just,
little over the top of the grand plot. Yeah, probably one of the weaker evil plots in the series, I'd say. I think there's probably some that are a bit even weaker than that, but as far as like the grand plots, like unlike something like Goldfinger, which had a pretty solid, this plot was to make a lot of money, and had a
yeah,
pretty practical
yeah,
way of doing it too,
yeah.
but yeah, a little over the top as far as the plot. The actual action and like the snow chases and stuff, I really enjoyed. The soundtrack was solid, and I really like the arc that James Bond experiences throughout the film.
Yeah.
It would be a perfect setup for like a really dark revenge driven where he goes off the rails next film. Unfortunately, they didn't take advantage of that. So,
No.
but
I
you
think I
kind
think Lazenby gets a bad rap
yeah, he
because
does.
I don't think he's easily the worst Bond out of all of the Bonds, but he gets a bad rap. Like, just because you're the worst Bond doesn't mean you do a bad job of playing Bond. Let's be honest.
Yeah, he just
But
people just had a
yeah,
negative reaction because there's no longer Sean Connery. It wasn't they
well,
changed the cast. It's different, not quite as charming, not quite as
yeah,
confident in the role yet. So yeah,
yeah, and there was no Sean Connery because he was not on speaking terms with Broccoli.
yeah,
Like, he resigned from the movie, and they needed a replacement.
yeah. And
So,
I didn't
so
realize how respected George Lazenby was, but he's like been doing like fashion ads. He's kind of considered like a pretty respectable fashion symbol and culture leader for a while. I thought he was kind of like a where they dragged this guy from, but no, he's actually
yeah,
pretty respectable, and I think that he kind of got the short end of the stick with that because I think it was a pretty solid, if not incredibly brilliant, it was a solid film that had kind of did something a little bit different. Like they kind of made sort of a almost like let me put it this way: if the Bond films were like an episodic TV series, this would be like your first serial storyline moment. This is like
yeah,
a permanent change in his life. He was married and his
yeah. It
wife
would
was murdered. That's a pretty big
it would
change.
be.
Yeah,
Yeah, it would be, and I agree with that. It's just, but if we're talking about it as a film, it just does not hold up to the same level. Now, part of it is because you have a new actor playing Bond. Part of it is
yeah,
because you have a new director playing Bond too. So Peter Hunt directed it, um, and he was working on the previous movies, but then this was his directorial debut with the Bond film. So you have a new
ooh,
director, you
yeah,
have a new actor, and it just kind of the studio tried to go out of their way to make audiences forget that it's a new person playing James Bond, but it
Yeah.
also led to like continuity errors. This is a direct sequel to the previous movie, but then for whatever reason, Blofeld doesn't recognize who James Bond is,
Yeah.
and they sort of like start playing that up as an in joke, like oh we have a new James Bond, blah blah blah. They had like some fourth wall jokes. Like there's one
Oh,
line
I don't
where
remember that
Bond
actually.
said, "Well, this never happened to the other fellow."
Oh, I didn't
And
realize that.
it's just a bit too, yeah, it's just too silly for me. It's just, I don't know. It feels like a regression, and I understand they're trying to reboot it, new actor and all that, but I did not love this movie. I think
Okay.
I would appreciate it more going back to it now, but definitely not one of my favorites.
I find it pretty solid. So I would probably put it into shaken not stirred. I'm thinking you probably would put it into on Honest Majesty's Secret Serviceable, ironically,
More like Doctor
or
Nope.
Doctor Nope.
Oh, I would
So
put it in. It's your tier next, but I will go on record
so you're
saying
breaking up.
as
Sorry.
from just monster.
Oh no, we're breaking up. Discord. All right. Let's switch you.
Right.
Let's switch you
Anyway, I was
to.
saying it's your tier list, so you can freely put on Shaken Not Stirred. But I just want to go on record and say that I strongly disagree with that. For anybody who comes in later and sees On His Majesty's Secret Service at that top tier, it wasn't my idea. Let that be known.
Well, I'm a diplomatic man, so how about right on the money penny, right in the middle between them.
Yeah. All right. We can.
Definitely higher than you'd prefer, but I thought it had
Well, yeah,
some. Yeah, obviously.
yeah. That's
I'm
fine.
sure we'll
I
find some
can't believe
movies we
I'm
can.
on a tier list where Thunderball is ranked lower than On His Majesty's Secret Service. What did I sign up for?
All right, we'll have to watch. We'll have to make a time to watch it together again and redeem it for you.
Redeem it, yeah.
Ooh.
Regale it.
Okay,
Oh,
so Diamonds Are Forever. This one's a really complicated one. They brought
oh.
Sean Connery back, and this is, oh my God, this is one of my least favorites. I hate this one so much. Uh, only 6 kills and 1 shag. Like this is the most unvirile James Bond we've seen yet, unfortunately. And
Yeah.
I mean, Sean Connery would go on for many, many years doing Bond films, but I remember him. I think I don't know if they didn't dye his hair as much or something like that. I remember him looking like he'd only been out of the Bond game for like a few years, but he looked like 20 years older for some reason. I don't know. He had
Okay.
like a bad
So hold
divorce
on.
or something.
All right. So before we go on, I want to talk a little bit about the production of
Okay, yeah,
Diamonds
that's
Are
good.
Forever. Okay. So George Lazenby, he gets on with Eon and he signs a contract, and he's the new James Bond. And he signs a contract for 7 Bond movies, right? He left. They didn't fire him. He left his contract after just one. Why? Because his agent advised him to. His agent said, "Don't do any more James Bond movies." So he left. So here's a list of some of the actors that the producers were contemplating on replacing him with. And the forerunner was John Gavin. But some more familiar names that you might be familiar with: Clint Eastwood, Adam West, and Burt Reynolds were all considered. Eastwood, Reynolds, and West all stated Bond should not be played by an American actor. So these were the actors saying, no. That this is not our ballpark. But they were considered. Can you imagine a world where we got an Adam West James Bond?
That would be funny. I'm just imagining it's like, I just have one question for you. Do you like it shaken or stirred? Like Clint Eastwood. It's kind of like a gritty. But Burt
Well,
Reynolds,
tell you
I
the
would
truth, I,
actually. Go ahead. Sorry.
no. Well, to tell you the truth, I lost count myself in all the excitement.
I answer one question.
Oh
Did I
man.
kill 6 guys back there? Or just 5? Yeah, no,
Okay.
that I'd actually
So,
watch that. Burt Reynolds seems to be the most ridiculous for me because I know he was super popular at the time, but he's not a James Bond candidate. I'm sorry.
no, he's not. He's not. So anyway, so they need a new actor to come in. United Artists really, really, really wanted Sean Connery back. Sean Connery's still not talking to Albert Broccoli, but they really want
Yeah.
Sean Connery back. So what do? They pay him a record-breaking deal. They
Yeah.
pay him a salary of $1.25 million to come back and do the movie. 1.25 American dollars in 71 the movie was released. So it started filming in what, 69, 70? But the point is, 1970, call it $1.25 million. Please come back and do James Bond. What does Sean Connery do when he comes back? He phones it in. He phones it in. Like you said, he looked aged. He's away from it for a couple years. His hair's all grayed out. He's a little bit out of shape, and he just he phones it in. The movie itself, I don't hate it as much as you do, but it's not a good one. It really isn't. He wants, yeah, it's just, yeah.
Yeah,
I've ranted enough. It's your turn to talk.
yeah, no. Obviously, Sean Connery was phoning it in. He wasn't really happy with it. He was kind of done with the character, it seemed.
Yeah.
The villains, I cannot stand the villains. They're like caricatures of human beings. It's like Mr. Kidd and Mr. Wint. It's like very,
Wait,
very, very. Well, I don't want to get into it, but like look at. Let me pull up the picture of these guys.
they were terrible. They were terrible. They look. You know what they look like? They look like a less deranged, Kane Lynch. They look like a less
Yes,
deranged Kane.
1970s Kane and Lynch. He's got the hairline and everything. Like what is that? What is that hair? What is that hair? It was so wild. And then there's
He looks
yeah.
like, oh, what's his name? Who's diabetes? What's the actor's?
Oh yeah, Wilford Brimley. Yeah.
Wilford Brimley. He looks like Wilford Brimley.
Wilford Brimley as played by a 14-year-old. Like, look at that kind of baby face underneath. It's such a
Wilford
weird.
Brimley. Yeah. And then like his death in particular when he has his arms outstretched and then like first like his arms are out and you see like the fire on his arms and then it just engulfs his body and he's just standing there screaming as he's slowly engulfed by fire. Ah! It's just the dumbest.
Yeah. Like her like unintentionally comedic deaths, terrible, terrible. Villain, henchman, whatever. They were kind of the villains of the film. Just a
Yeah.
really kind of poor plot. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it was easily one of my least favorite Bond films, if not for a couple others that I possibly hate even more. But even those films probably have more. The ones I hate even more probably have more interesting elements than this one. So this one was just like not only boring but also just kind of awful.
Okay, and so you want to know what the original plot of this movie was? Just to show you how silly and how they had no idea what they were going to do. The original plot had Goldfinger's identical twin brother seeking revenge.
Yeah, that's dumb.
Whew.
Even for the
And then there's
70s.
like other stuff too. Like Q puts missiles in the car, which are never fired. So that's like a terrible case of Chekhov's gun.
Yeah.
And then the plot ends up being Blofeld, played by a completely new actor now, who doesn't have the same gravitas as Donald Pleasance. The new Blofeld is going to use a diamond encrusted satellite laser system to destroy the world's nuclear arms and provide the ultimate weapon. So it's like a precursor to GoldenEye, except the plot is we have a laser beam that's diamond encrusted, which makes the lasers stronger.
Yeah, it didn't really hit the right notes. Obviously too much effort was spent getting, Connery back, but I don't think it was worth it. They just had a poor plot, poor characters. Yeah, it was a rough ride. But oh,
But the theme song kicked ass. I love the theme song. The theme
theme
song's
song was
really good.
solid. Theme song was solid. Yeah.
Theme song was
Some of my favorite theme songs are from some of the worst movies in the series, in my opinion. But I also
yeah.
wanted to bring up one fact from Honor Majesty's Service.
Oh yeah.
This is one of the few movies that was based on a book written after the movie started. So while they were filming Doctor No, Ian Fleming himself wrote the book to Honor Majesty's Secret Service, which is kind of a neat detail. I wonder if the movies at all influenced his writing. They'd be kind of curious.
Yeah,
But
that'd be interesting.
yeah, good theme song. Um, Connery was phoning it in. He wasn't really happy with it. He was kind of done with the character. Terrible, terrible, terrible henchman. Very like sexless. What one shag? Not a Bond film. You got to have at least two.
Which,
And,
stream is a very important measure. The number of women beds that is going into our factoring of the quality of the movies.
it is like you gotta come on.
And I'll be honest, I didn't care for Tiffany Case. Like, there's that one scene later when she's like, I think belly dancing or something and entertaining Blofeld, and then she runs onto like the platform of the ship to like aim the laser. at something, and it just seems like so awkward. I didn't care for her as a Bond girl. I don't know.
Oh, was she
Just
like in a bikini or something like that at the time? Was
something
that the
like that.
scene?
Yeah,
Yeah, it was
yeah,
really silly. I mean, she was a lovely lady, looks like it, but it was
yeah.
just like, yeah, just poor the plot, just plot and Connery not being into it. So I would probably, which tier, bottom or second from the bottom? I'd put it in bottom.
Do- I know you would. Doctor Nope. As much as I ragged on this thing and as ridiculous it was, I did enjoy watching it. I will say that much. I'd put it at Doctor Nope.
Okay.
Um, but I'm more than okay considering I have very few positive things to actually say about it. Put it in Doctor O Nothing, Double O Nothing.
Yeah.
Um,
There's one
because
I
I think
want
it's
to go ahead.
it's unintentionally comedic, but I think the comedy is actually why I like it as much as I do.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's just it's a very unpleasant movie to watch. I remember I did not enjoy watching it all. Like even some of the movies that weren't great. Like even
I
some of the
wouldn't say it's
later.
unpleasant. I wouldn't say it's unpleasant. It's pleasant to watch, but then I also recognize I'm the kind of person who I'll hate watch things, but I'll also love things when they're just like schlocky. And I think that as far as Bond movies go, Diamonds Are Forever is schlock.
Yeah,
So
now that I've gotten into like watching bad movies for fun, maybe I would enjoy it from an ironic angle more. But at the time, watching it as unironically watching it as a James Bond film, I did not enjoy it. So
yeah.
okay, we got
Yeah.
our first double o nothing.
All
There's
right.
another
And so
film I
those
would.
are the Connery movies. So like before we move on, we should recap the Connery and Lazenby. Connery plus Lazenby.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Lazenby got his one film, but yeah, Connery kind of set the stage. And when you're the first actor to play anything, just like Adam West or Michael Keaton, with Batman, or Christopher Reeve, especially for Superman, you're anybody who's going to play that character later always gets compared to you. You become the standard. You become the bar that you have to clear, and that
yeah.
also kind of I'd say it also kind of comes with some nostalgic value as well. Like no matter how good or bad you were the first. So you kind of get that thing. Like personally, I didn't think Jack Nicholson was doing particularly anything other than his normal "I'm crazy Jack Nicholson" thing when he did the Joker. But it was such an iconic movie, and it was a great, really, really well produced superhero movie for the time. So that it kind of got the thing. So yeah, I mean Connery's a legend. You can't get down on Connery.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that those are the Connery movies. There, we've got Goldfinger as our golden movie. Nothing shaken, not stirred yet. As for Right on the Money Penny, we have From Russia with Love. We have On His Majesty's Secret Service for some reason.
For
And
some
what's the other
reason.
one that we put it? And for You Only Live Twice. The serviceable movies On His Majesty's Secret Serviceable. We have Doctor No and Thunderball, which should be higher. Uh, nothing for Doctor Nope yet, and Double O Nothing. Diamonds Are Forever. Not great. Just not a great look. Not a great film.
Yeah, Crossington brings up a good point. Like some of my favorites are Schlock, but Diamonds is just boring. Yeah, like I would say that there's some parts I really don't like about Diamonds, but um, like at least the really bad ones you can kind of enjoy it unironically. But like the worst films are either bad comedies or really really boring movies because you can't do anything with boring. You can do something
Yeah.
with like really bad, like so tragically bad it becomes funny, like The Room or Troll 2 or something like that. But if it's just dull, not completely incompetent, but just dull, there's not much you can do with it.
Yeah. All right. Now we're on to the Roger Moore era.
Now, interestingly enough, Roger Moore started out with one of my least favorite Bond movies of all time, but then followed up with one of my favorite Bond movies. So he definitely was a roller coaster, Roger Moore. So we're dipping into 1973 with Live and Let Die. Uh,
Yeah, and this is where you and I actually agree because I look at it in a pretty similar light. Now the question is, how much do you dislike Live and Let Die versus how much do I find it redeemable?
yeah, I like some of the voodoo stuff. Like the guy with the hat, I forget his name. Ke- Kanenga, was that him?
No, the villain, right? The dictator.
Or he was probably like a henchman. He wasn't like the big bad. He was probably a henchman. I'm trying to remember what his name was. But I remember he was pretty interesting if I remember right.
Mm. Well, okay, here's a fun fact. So the villain in Live and Let Die is a Caribbean dictator, and he's played by Yaphet Kotto, who's best known, probably, aside from this movie, he was in Alien. He was Lieutenant Al Girardello in Alien.
Hmm, that's
You know who
interesting.
I'm talking about? If I
Uh,
showed you a picture of him, you'd recognize who this guy is.
I probably would, yeah. I don't think he was a huge
Here.
character in it, but
Oh, no, 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 no. He had a pretty big role in Alien. Here, this guy.
oh, that guy, yeah, yeah, I remembered him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Very different role, but
yeah.
yeah,
Very.
it was very Live and Let Die was very low tech, like no cars, very kind of like
No
you know,
Q.
no, yeah, no queue, mm, not really any gadgets. I mean,
Yeah,
technically some basic stuff, but yeah, it was kind of a. I would also agree, with your comments about on Your Majesty's Secret Service. This is kind of a almost like a maybe it was intentionally kind of like a let's roll back some, but I feel it's a
yeah.
little bit like a devolution of the formula, kind of rolled it back. Now that's all to say that it's got one of the best theme songs of the series, like the Paul McCartney's "Live and Let Die." That's like the instant. It was like a straight up top 40 pop song, just happened to
Hmm.
be you know made for a Bond film. So yeah, easily one of the best theme songs. Still a great song that I sing every once in a while.
It's a decent song. I much prefer the Guns N' Roses version, personally. Um,
Yeah, but he wrote it. He wrote it
but
for that. So you got to
he
give
did, he
credit to
did,
the
he, no, he
original.
did. Yeah, it's one of the better theme songs. One of the best Bond. Jane Seymour, like Jane Seymour is
Yeah,
absolutely a bombshell movie.
yeah, I like Jane Seymour's. She played Solitaire. Yeah, I know. I thought
Yeah.
that was a. She was actually one of the better aspects of the film, I believe. If
Yeah.
I recall, she
But
wasn't like just all. A lot of the Bond girls were just basically just eye candy. I think she had some agency, and if I recall correctly,
mhm,
I could be making that up, but
I'll be
uh,
honest, I don't remember that well. Black exploitation Bond.
yeah, it was rough. It was rough.
Well, like, let's talk about the plot. Why is it? Because the plot is there's a dictator in the Caribbean, and he wants to distribute. The English is hard. Heroin for free. Like, it's free real estate. It's free heroin.
It's real
Um,
estate.
by doing that, he'll increase demand, and then what that will do is drive his competitors out of business and give himself a monopoly. So we're dealing with, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because I know, Indigo. When we talk about a later Bond movie and you say, the plot's not very James Bondish, I want you to remember Live and Let Die because I'm going to make a reference back to this. So the movie is about drug distributions and basically a drug monopoly. Eh, eh. I didn't care for the plot.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm really not
I
a
didn't
fan
care
of
for the
the
plot.
James Bond drug movies, I'll get into later. But yeah, I don't think drugs. Obviously, that was a big like dare to teach kids to stop drugs, and it was a big there's a big
I don't even think it
drug
was bad.
epidemic. It was a big epidemic back at the time, so obviously a lot of movies addressed
Mm,
that problem. But yeah, I wasn't I don't think James Bond should be stopping drugs. I think that the plot should be a little bit more lofty, either a grand like sinister heist, like in Goldfinger where he's trying to rob all the gold of Fort Knox, or something like world changing, laser in the sky or nukes or starting wars or something like that. Drugs just seems a little bit
mm.
more pedestrian, a little bit more like this should get the local authorities do this kind of thing, but that's just me.
Yeah, it was going to be like in the case of Live and Let Die in particular, because I'm going to contrast this later on when we talk about the other drug
Yeah.
movie. In the case of Live and Let Die in particular, why would the British care about a Caribbean drug dealer, with heroin distribution? That doesn't quite seem like something that MI6 would get involved in, especially considering that we're talking about a plot that occurs around Saint Martinique and the former French colonies rather than former English ones.
Yeah, it's a little it's a weak motivation. Like why would the double O agents be sent out to that and with so little backup and resources and stuff like that? Because like yes, a 007 agent is extremely talented when like in a metropolitan area because they can kind of blend
Mhm.
in, they can schmooze, they can, use all the gear and stuff like that. But out in the sticks, like Americans fighting in Vietnam. You're out of your element. So,
Yeah,
but I will say one redeeming feature I really liked. At least the character design of Baron Samedi. I think he was a
yeah.
pretty striking, memorable. Um, Not super important to the plot, but definitely an interesting.
Well,
Okay,
and this is where you get to like that surreal level because then you
yeah,
have Kananga, Mr. Big, assumes the form of Baron Samedi as or Sandy or whatever as his avatar. And now you don't know if that's actually he's partially Mr. Big's henchman. He is or is he actually the Baron of Death? Is he actually like a Loa god? Or is he just like a henchman who assumes the identity of it? It's so out there and so surreal and weird. And then later James Bond lore, particularly in like the video games or whatever, will really lean into the supernatural
yeah,
element of it. Now, I love the supernatural and I love that kind of blending of it, but not in James Bond. It's
no,
James Bond is too grounded in reality for this to exist in that universe cleanly. Like if this was a kind of a spy thriller, like any other spy thriller that kind of leaned into that, this would be much more appropriate. But
yeah,
it's too weird for Bond.
yeah. Gallimard in Indiana Jones, it was weird, but it fit. Like that.
Makes
That.
sense. If
Yeah,
concerning the first movie, they found the Ark of the
yeah,
Covenant, and you're already dealing with Christian mythology at that point.
yeah.
Then yeah, that totally works in that universe. But here it's what?
Yeah, it's definitely a weird left turn, and I believe there was some sort of did they use voodoo dolls in that one, or
Yeah, they did.
like they pinned them.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that was weird. I remember thinking
yeah,
like this is not James Bond. Come on, guys. So yeah, it was just
yeah.
a weird left turn. It felt like fan fiction. Maybe it was written by Fleming. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't. I can't. I
It
It
was
was
based on a Fleming book. Yeah.
okay. Maybe Fleming read too much like fantasy adventure films or whatever, or he was really into voodoo at the time. But yeah, I don't know how many how much freedom or kind of uh, creative freedom they took from the book and what was all in the book, but it just felt like a weird left turn. So that
Well,
I'd
the book was radically different from the movie.
yeah,
Right
okay,
now, I haven't read very many of the James Bond books at all, but I know for Live and Let Die, it basically goes from this Haitian dictator. It wasn't even a dictator in the movie. He was a dictator. He's a Haitian smuggler and a money launderer and a casino owner or a club owner or something like that, and he's smuggling gold coins to Smersh. Right, and Smersh is one of the organizations that Bond goes after. It's like the Russian department. Oh no, I know what Smersh is. It's Death Spies. It's the anti-spy organization of the Soviet Union. So he's
yeah,
smuggling coins there. That's the book, right? So it's actually much more grounded in reality, but he's part of a voodoo cult, and that adds flavor to it. In the
yeah.
movie, you actually just see voodoo gods, and yeah,
Yeah, like I'm fine with the idea of exploring like how belief can influence people. Like that's totally fine if they're using the voodoo cult to like influence the locals or attain some sort of level of, power or whatever, that's fine. But I think I remember scenes like the literally like stabbing, aren't they like stabbing the doll and like people are getting in pain
and
and
then
things
like
like that.
rotating the pin around and
Yeah, and it
stuff
was
like
like,
that.
ew, this is not, like it seems like a Indiana Jones plot or whatever or something else.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
So
would
like if it was a
probably,
Vampire the Masquerade plot, I'd be like, yeah, that makes total sense. Why not?
yeah. It's when you never introduce like pure fantasy into a franchise, it'll always just come off as very strange, and
And
very
I'll
out of
also say
place.
I hate. Oh yeah, I'll also say I hate the alligator jump scene because it's also kind of silly.
There's so many
Um,
silly scenes in
it's.
that, yeah.
I mean, it works. I get it. And technically speaking, that is. I think I read somewhere. Now I could be wrong. I think I read somewhere that's something you actually can do. But I think I remember reading it. But I also don't want to quote that because I don't want to like be wrong. But it's just you know that scene, it stands out for me for the wrong reasons. But I feel that despite those problems, I think it's still enjoyable enough because I do think Yaphet Kotto did a great job playing the villain. I think that Baron Samedi, as silly as he is in a Bond movie, he's iconic enough
Very
that
iconic, yeah.
I still enjoy seeing him. The theme song, like you said, is great, and and like I said, I absolutely love Solitaire. So I don't hate this movie. It's not one of my favorites, but I don't dislike it.
Yeah, talking about it more, it's gone up a little bit in my grade, but it was definitely when I started this, it was definitely bottom tier for me. So, would you
Yeah,
probably
I'd
put
put
it
it in
in
Doctor
mid
Nope.
Doctor
I'd
Nope?
put it in
Yeah,
Doctor Nope.
yeah. I was
Yeah.
thinking if you were thinking more like a middle ground, I would say Doctor Nope as a compromise.
No, no, I'd actually put it at Doctor No because, now we have to think about this. Do I like this movie better than Doctor No? No, I don't. I think Doctor No is a much better movie overall, right?
Yeah.
So by default, Live and Let Die has to be Doctor Nope.
Yeah, now does is it unique? Sure, but unique isn't always good, especially when you kind of like
No,
break the universe with magic.
yeah,
Magic in a Bond
yeah, and
film
I,
is
yeah,
weird.
I put it on the same tier as I would put on His Majesty's Secret Service, but for different reasons.
We'll have to watch that. I think you'll be pleasantly
You know what?
surprised by the film. I think you'll like it more when
You know
you
what?
watch it again.
Our next movie night, we'll make that happen. I'm okay with giving it another one.
Yeah. I think it would have definitely been elevated had it been followed up by a really good turn. Like it was a great setup for something
Yeah,
big that just didn't
it
happen.
was.
So
Yeah, no
I
payoff.
yeah, as a solitaire movie that had a potential for a payoff would be great. Now the next
Yeah,
movie, 1974, is The Man with the Golden Gun. I think we both agree this is like good stuff, really good stuff, like a total
it's good
turnaround.
stuff.
Yeah,
It's good stuff. I'll tell you right off the bat, right off the bat, Shaken Not Stirred. It's an excellent Bond movie. I don't quite put it up at Golden, but this movie is fantastic.
man, I was hoping we get all the movies with gold in the name up into the golden tier, but maybe that won't happen. But yeah, no, really good. I mean, like, this is the Bond films really demonstrate the value of a really good villain. Like we get Christopher
Yeah,
Lee as, the main scaremonger, right? He was just a
yeah,
great. He was threatening, but at the same time, like charming. That nice mix of like this guy actually doesn't. If he wasn't holding a gun to my head, I'd love to talk to him. And Christopher Lee just has that kind of very. He was extremely tall. I think he was about my height before he died. Um,
yeah, yeah.
rip Christopher Lee, but very imposing, deep Shakespearean and theatrical, speaking. He's like, you just enter a
I
room.
don't.
Like any role he does, he had a tiny bit role in the terrible '90s Tim Burton Sleepy Hollow, but I'm like, he's so good. He's good in
I thought
anything.
you were
So
about to say the Howling too. I'm like, he carried that movie.
that movie's amazing. Howling 2, my sister's a werewolf.
No, no, no. Striva Werewolf Bitch. Let's call it by its proper name.
Okay, there you go.
But no, I
Um,
agree. I think Christopher Lee, is like you said, the villain elevates the movie.
yeah,
Like Christopher Lee does such a great job of playing Scaramanga, and not only that, but you have a villain, a world-renowned assassin who is on the same level technically as Bond,
yeah,
skill level. That final confrontation with the two of them, and they're kind of just like eyeing each other out. They start off with that duel back to back, and then they break
yeah,
off, and then they're like following each other. It's like the deadliest game kind of hunting.
yeah,
Great scene. It's so filled with tension because you don't know what's going to happen. Obviously, like you have a hunch Bond's going to win. He always does. He's the hero. But they do such a great job of framing it and pacing it that it leaves you wondering, like, what's the next step? What's going to happen next? Especially when you consider, like, with Bond, he's taking shots. He is nervous. He sees Scaramanga hiding behind a wall. Shot. He misses. That's not him. Scaramanga's using the island, the arena to his advantage, and he only has one shot, right? The golden gun only has a single bullet, so he
right.
has to be precise. Where Bond has some room for error, so it's this really great cat and mouse game. I think that is incredible.
And I believe this is a great example of like setup and payoff. I believe early in the film, you see Scaramanga do the hunt with somebody else, and so you kind of get that, and you see how deadly he is and how disorienting and how dangerous this sort of like you said, yeah, the most dangerous game esque hunt is
Yeah,
with the Hall of Mirrors, which is really iconic, right? But
Yeah.
and then so when you see James Bond introduced into that scenario, you're like, oh crap, this is I I saw what happened last time. This is not good. So it's a really great way of like setting up something because
Mm.
quite often the Bond films had a habit of just introducing a ridiculous, dangerous scenario like right off the bat, or like not right off the bat, but like for the first time to Bond. So it's
Mhm.
like, oh wow, this is a thing. But in Golden Gun, I remember that was set up earlier, so it had that sort of
Mhm.
payoff where you're like, oh man, James Bond is uh, this guy knows all the mirror tricks. He's going to be able to sneak up on James Bond. It
Mhm.
was a very psychological battle as well as physical. It was about
Yeah.
outwitting your opponent, and there were a lot of holo mirrors. There's been lots of holo mirrors seen since, but I think this is definitely up there with Enter the Dragon and one of the most iconic. It was just a really, really
Yeah,
well
for
done
sure.
scene.
For sure. And in the movie, there's only a single death. And spoiler alert, it's Scaramanga.
And one shag. Wow, it's got like the lowest score of all the films. Yeah, it's one of the best.
Yeah.
Wow, my theory's
Yeah.
been disproved.
Oh, yeah, there you go. And I will also say, I think Nick Nack's a fun villain too. I think Nick Nack I enjoyed him. Scaramanga's little manservant.
Oh, yeah, I remember him now. I keep on getting him mixed up with the guy from from what
So yeah, so
Fantasy Island.
in yeah, so in GoldenEye, the video game, this is the thing that kind of irked me about the Odd Job character is that they combined Odd Job with Nick Nack because Nick Nack was this little person, right?
hmm
And he wore the suit with the bowler hat and all that, and they combined that with Odd Job with the face model, and then just made him Odd Job, who's like 6 feet tall in Goldfinger. Like he's taller than Sean Connery, like six something, right? He
He's like six
manhandled
seven,
him.
I think, or something like that, right? Yeah.
Something like that, something ridiculous. But then you had Nick Nack, who's this little butlered, bowler hatted assassin, and I enjoyed him because not even for comedy value, but he just proved to be a really wily henchman.
I'm gonna bump you over to a different region here. Let's try US
Am I cutting
East.
off again?
Yeah, you're okay. It looks like you're a lot better now. Okay.
All right, cool.
Yeah. For some reason US East wasn't working. Then we switched to Singapore. That seemed to work, and now US East is working again. Yeah,
Mm.
surprising. Very very small kill and shag count, but the reason I was getting Knick Knack mixed up with the Fantasy Island guy is because he is the
He is the
Fantasy
same guy,
Island
yeah.
guy. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I'm not just little peopleist.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah,
No,
no,
he was like that.
very weird setup. But it's that sort of it's almost like a one-on-one like a movie length duel between the two. Like
Yeah,
it's a very personal kind of one-on-one story between the two, and that's what kind of makes it interesting. Fun fact:
yeah,
Christopher Lee was Ian Fleming's cousin, knew each
yeah.
other pretty well. And he actually was one of the bigger inspirations for Bond. Christopher Lee served in I believe the some sort of service in the British military, and he was actually like a full-on spy. Did actually killed men and things like that. Did a lot of really crazy stuff in real life before becoming an actor, and a lot of his exploits, I guess, inspired his cousin Ian Fleming to write about it. So there you go,
Yeah.
a bit of history. He's a
There you go.
like
Now, I will say this, and I would with Jules Borgias in chat. They didn't lean into the martial arts thing. They could have had a Bruce Lee esque henchman. I actually do agree with you there. So, Man with the Golden Gun had a whole bunch of kung fu in it. He was on the like there was a number of kung fu scenes because it's 1974. Bruce Lee is
yeah.
hitting that kind of height, and they could have had something to reflect that more rather than just kind of the whole hum kung fu that there was in it. I think that would have made the film a lot more interesting. So definitely something I think that would have enhanced the movie more. But
Yeah.
that being said, I think that you and I, Indigo, are in the very big minority because a lot of people don't like this movie. They think it's one of the
Interesting.
worst ones between chat over here and even between like the Rotten Tomato score. They're not fans of this one, which I
Interesting.
don't see. I love this movie.
Yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was one of the more popular ones. It also, not that it really matters because we're covering the movies, but it's a shoe-in for most influential to the video games, like with the Golden Gun mode and things like that. Like it
Yeah,
definitely, that's such a great video game idea, having an insta kill gun,
yeah,
dual sort of thing. So I personally think it's shaken not stirred.
I agree.
I didn't know that there was a public outcry to it, but between us two, I think we're in agreement that it's definitely up
Yeah,
there.
yeah, for just for fun. Like I know the Rotten Tomato score isn't good. Rotten Tomatoes. Let's see. Man with the Golden Gun, Rotten Tomatoes. Critic score 40%, audience score 55%.
Okay. Well, at least the audience liked it better than the critics, but yeah, it's
as as a side note, not just as a pure side note, because this is the first thing I see in the you also might like Three Ninjas High Noon at
oh no.
Mega Mountain. Would you like to guess what the scores are for Three Ninjas High Noon at Mega Mountain?
Oh God. I'm saying it's got to be under 20.
Oh yeah. Well, which one? Critics or audience?
Um, dang. There's got to be some people who probably like it, like dumb kids or whatever. but
Hey, I was one of those dumb kids because I remember watching that movie several times from the video store. Why? Hulk Hogan was in it.
oh yeah, I watched Suburban Commando with Hulk Hogan, and I love the Hulkster, and I actually he actually lives like in my area. Sometimes we actually run into him, at local stores and stuff like that. But he's a terrible actor.
He is awful. He is awful. Anyway, the critic score for this movie is 0%.
Okay.
Audience 29.
0%. Yeah, that seems right.
Uh,
All right, so I put Golden Gun in Shaken Not Stirred. Um, yeah, I when I think about that more, it was definitely kind of like a one-on-one, like duel between the two, which made it kind of stand out in that way. All right, Spy Who Loved Me. Um, I give the cover a 10 out of 10,
oh
but
yeah, absolutely.
I'll show the audience what I'm talking about here.
Hmm.
Yeah, very very I very much love the cover here. Um, so this one was another water based one, kind of almost like an unofficial. Uh, Not obviously nothing to do with the Thunderball, but it kind of felt a little bit like another kind of attempt at that sort of water, naval watery based Thunderball esque one. Um,
Now, if you'll indulge me, I'd like to summarize the plot.
Go ahead.
There's a reclusive megalomaniac, right? As there are in Bond movies.
As you do.
And he plans to destroy the world, and he wants to create a new civilization. And where is this new civilization going to be? Under the sea, under the sea, da, da, da. Down here it's wetter. Something is better for you and me. Yeah, that's the plot. He's basically it's Moonraker but underwater.
I got you. I got you another quote here. Is a man not entitled to the sweat of his brow? No,
Yeah.
says the man in Washington. It belongs to the poor. No, says the man in the Vatican. It belongs to God. No, says the man in Moscow. It belongs to everyone. Okay, so now that we've referenced both Little Mermaid and Bioshock, Spy Who Loved Me. This one kind of middle ground more for me.
Yeah.
More. I want to say he was the most prolific Bond actor. Is that true? He seemed like he was in like 20 movies, but I know it's not been that many.
No,
I
no, no. He's the most prevalent one, I think,
Yeah,
because he was in 8 movies.
yeah. He's been in more than anyone else over the years. At least the mainline movies. I don't know. Maybe you can count the other ones with Sean
Yeah.
Connery and bump it up
Well,
beyond
no,
that.
we're
But
only counting Eon, right? If we're
yeah, we're
going
only
with
counting
even
Eon.
if you go with Eon, right? Sean Connery was in 7, right? So six Eon movies plus Never Say Never Again, 7.
Yeah, so even so, yeah, I remember getting a little bit of as I was watching them. I don't know if I necessarily watched them chronologically, but I remember getting a tad bit of more fatigue, if you know what I mean. And this was right around. I watched this one right around that time. Where I was sort of like, kind of like, this is fine. It's James Bond. I wouldn't call it the worst, the best. It was a solid movie. I
It was
remember,
okay.
yeah, I probably liked it better than Thunderball, probably.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely did like it better than Thunderball. I think that Carl Stromberg was kind of a fun villain. Um, just because of that whole, yes, I am going to create this underwater utopia. But more than anything, I think that I love this movie because this was also the introduction of Jaws.
Yeah, Jaws. I was just about to say that. We see Jaws in this one and the following movie, who was a really weird character because he had eventually he like started out as like intimidating henchman with metal teeth, and then eventually became like comic relief. It was a really odd
In the
turn
next
between
one, yeah,
in the next one,
in
yeah,
Moonraker, he definitely became comic relief.
right. And this one was possibly the most brutal as far as kill count up to this point with 18 kills.
Mhm.
Interestingly, yeah, it even tops You Only Live Twice. So it takes out a lot of henchmen in this one. Um, Jaws was obviously very memorable. Somebody
Yeah.
said that Barbara Bach, Major Anya Amasova. I don't remember her that much, but I'll take your word on it that she was terrible.
I think the fact that you don't remember her speaks volumes.
Yeah, I definitely remember her face. Um, Definitely. I mean, no offense to the ladies of the Bond movies, but they weren't necessarily picked for their acting all the time.
Not always.
But
And I so yeah, like there's that. And the theme song, I don't care for it. It's okay. But it's also weirdly a theme song that's not reflective of the title of the movie. The theme song is "Nobody Does It Better" by Carly Simon.
yeah, it was a weird. It's a really nice song, but it was weird that it wasn't named after the actual name of the film. Like that's a weird kind of departure. Um, but I remember liking the song quite a bit. But I gotta say it's probably got one of the coolest Bond tech gadgets. I'll pull it up here in a second here.
Are you talking about the submersible or
Yeah,
yeah,
submersible uh,
Lotus Spirit,
Lois Esprit or whatever you call it.
Esprit, or yeah,
Let me find
whatever.
a good photo of it here. Yeah, this was a pretty cool. I wonder how real the prop was. Doesn't like me doing that. Come on. Nope,
So,
doesn't like me doing that either.
according to Wikipedia, the submersible is called Wet Nelly. It is a custom built submarine for the movie in the shape of the Lotus Esprit sports car, which means that the submarine does not maintain a dry interior, and that's it's a wet sub. So you need when you're in the sub, you need to have scuba gear, but it
Okay,
actually does work.
okay.
It is an actual submarine. It was built by Perry Oceanographic Incorporated, and it cost $100,000.
Yeah, the fact that it was actually like a really actually kind of worked. I mean, obviously they probably, I'm guessing they probably replaced it with a wheeled car on the shots that it drove back up on land or whatever. But the
Yeah,
fact that they made like a really cool, unique car for that, that's kind of, that bumps up a little bit. I don't know if like a tier, but I remember thinking that that was a pretty cool prop, at least.
yeah, yeah. It absolutely was. It's one of the coolest vehicles, I think.
Yeah,
Um, and what else? Oh yeah, they had that set piece with Jaws fighting a shark, which was ridiculous but perfect.
yeah. The Roger Moore movies definitely go up on the campy scale. Like some of the campiest movies in the entire series are the Roger Moore
Yeah.
films. Like this one and the next one, they take it up to like extreme
Oh,
campy levels.
oh, and I remember they're at the ski lift, right? And that was when Jaws was like chasing him, so like Jaws is slowly chasing him up the ski lift. And then Bond does that ski jump and he opens up the parachute and it's this big parachute with a Union Jack on it.
Yeah, yeah, I recognize that. And like there's so many of these moments. This inspired a lot of the stuff from that would later be parodied in Austin Powers. Like I think he
Yeah.
has like a big UK, parachute and everything like that. It's a very memeable movie. So it's I'd say it's enjoyable. Not particularly good when taken seriously, but an enjoyable film. So what are you thinking? Like serviceable or right on the money penny?
Serviceable,
Serviceable.
serviceable,
Yeah.
serviceable. It's a fun movie. I can understand. I think there was someone in chat. Oh, right here, Crossing. Then it's a template of what is a good Bond movie. It's most representative of what a Bond movie is. I can see that. I think that that's definitely something that elevates it a little bit, but I think that Goldfinger still just pushes everything. It's far more iconic in every aspect, whereas I think The Spy Who Loved Me works, but you know what? No, I can put it on the Money Penny. I think I can put it on Money Penny. It's up there.
Think so?
It's up there.
I'm kind of on the
Yeah,
fence.
I'm kind of on the fence with it, but I think I can put it up on Money Penny when I talk about how well it works out. But I don't know. All I know is that it's up there with. I like it about on the same level that I do like. Hmm. hmm. Yeah. You know what? I put it right on the Money Penny. Right for me personally.
I'd be more on the serviceable.
Service. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, we can revisit it later. It's right. It's like a serviceable point five for me. Like you right
Serviceable.
it. Yeah,
I think
somewhere in
I
there.
think it's, my issue is I think it's more entertaining than Thunderball and Doctor No. That's why for me I would put it at Moneypenny because
Yeah,
through and through it's a much more entertaining movie. So
I agree with you, but it's also like less original than those. Like Thunderball at least is
yeah,
doing something new, kind of going the naval underwater stuff like that. That's kind of doing that again. But
yeah, that's good.
so
Another World War III plot.
yeah, it's little. I remember this movie distinctly. Kind of this one and A View to a Kill, kind of getting a little bit of the more fatigue. I was like, okay, kind of
Oh,
seen
we'll
this
talk
before.
about A View to a Kill.
Yeah. Now, definitely the next one has a lot of meme potential. Um, Moonraker is batshit crazy. That movie is nuts.
So it's the same plot as The Spy Who Loved Me, except now we're in space.
Yeah, it's
They
by
bring Jaws back.
yeah they bring Jaws back. Hugo Drax, Michael, played by Michael
Lonsdale.
Lonsdale. I personally liked Moonraker a lot more than Spy Who Loved Me because it's so ridiculous. But it like as a serious Bond film, it's kind of ridiculous and stupid. But it definitely was campy as heck. Probably one of the campiest Bond films.
I agree with you. I actually. Oh wow, Michael Lonsdale died last year.
Oh no,
Yeah.
Rip
What is it?
Hugo Drax.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. It's much more campier, but because it's like find it so damn enjoyable.
It's very
I
enjoyable.
find
Yeah.
this movie so damn enjoyable. Like I'm gonna like, but there's no World War III plot, so I'll give it credit for that. No, instead he's gonna like go spread this toxin to humanity from space, and then he's going to repopulate the globe with perfectly this plot of perfectly genetic. So it's basically Movie Bob the movie. If Movie Bob was able to,
this
if he was able to make a biopic of
this looks
himself.
like a relatively small amount of Earth the laser from the moon. I don't know. Yeah,
Um,
that's
but yeah, so he's gonna repopulate the world with these genetically perfect humans. It's insane, but that's why I like it because as silly as the plot is, and then Hugo Drax is such a great villain because there's that scene when Roger Moore he's flying over the Drax estate. It's like, oh, why doesn't he just get the Statue of Liberty? Oh, he's bought it, but they just won't let him bring it over. So he owns, or was it the Eiffel Tower? I can't remember. It was one or the other, but he literally owns it, and the government's just like, no, you're not moving it over. You can own it, but it's staying here.
yeah. No, it's wild. This is when they're a lot. I'm sure. I don't know if it's based on a Bond on a Fleming novel. I'd have to research it, but I get the idea that the studio was like, okay, let's go crazy.
Yeah.
Let's really get people's attention with something really out there. And how far out there? Out in space. So
Yeah. So it is. So Moonraker is a Bond novel. It's the third Bond novel,
oh wow,
and
okay,
again, very little to do with the movie. So
yeah,
yeah. So Bond in the second half of the movie, he's seconded to Drax's staff as a businessman that builds the Moonraker weapon, which is a prototype missile used to defend England. Then he finds out Drax is actually German. He's an ex-Nazi working for the Soviets. So he builds this rocket, fills it with a nuclear warhead, and fires it at London. Again,
Oh my God.
much more grounded plot. 1955, so it's directly tied into that, like post World War II
Did
espionage.
Ian Fleming accidentally write what would become Wolfenstein: The New Order? That's
Oh,
amazing. But I just love it. Like I'm just reading like some high level details of Moonraker to refresh my memory. Set
yeah.
pieces: gunfight in space with jetpacks and laser guns. It's like how can you top that? That's just like pure camp.
It's wonderful, and I think it's indicative of the entire run of Roger Moore movies, where
Yeah,
everything is just that campy, over the top,
yeah,
um, utter silliness. But that's why I love it.
yeah. Weirdly enough, like yeah, the man with the golden gun, where he hunts a man with a one bullet in his gun, with it made purely of gold in a hall of mirrors, is like one of his most grounded films
Yeah, yeah.
of his career. So it's
Yeah.
kind of funny.
Now, in the defense of Man with a Golden Gun, he Roger Moore actually got criticism for the way he portrayed Bond because they said it was too close to Connery, which is
Oh,
I think why I liked it so much, because it was that
yeah,
grounded, you know. Whereas this is like pure Roger Moore.
yeah, yeah. Nothing against Roger Moore, but like I kind of got the way he portrayed Bond. He was a little smug. I kind of got
Yeah,
the idea, like after he made a clip, he's like, "Oh, it's pretty funny," you know. It's like kind of like you just kind of got the idea that he was really enjoying himself a little bit more.
yeah. He's James Bond if written by BreadTube. Um,
Yeah, yeah, he was always a little bit. He was smug Bond, which you know
yeah.
I know a lot of people like him as Bond. He wasn't my favorite, but he some of his movies were really great, and he definitely contributed to those. Moonraker, I would actually put on right on the money penny. I would put it higher. Like ironically, it's like top tier. Unironically, not so high.
No,
So
no. See, I disagree. I think it's shaken, not stirred. I think it's a solid movie from start to finish. It is the perfect Roger Moore movie. And even like with some of the quips, like the smug Bond is when they reintroduce Jaws and he comes back. It's like, who's that? That's his name's Jaws. He kills people.
yeah,
I don't know. A lot of it just speaks to me.
the
I think that it's a
the
solid Bond movie front to back.
The Jaws love story with the little
Oh,
woman.
yeah, and then so you have this whole plot. You have this whole plot of we're gonna send these genetically perfect humans into space. They're gonna repopulate the Earth. Who's left in space? It's this geeky little professor that is working for the Drax Corporation, like with this program, and she has a crush on Jaws. And there's that one scene when Jaws smiles at her, right? And it's just like, it's like that weird, messed up Jaws that
Yeah,
he has. And then they're at the end of the movie, and Richard Keel has the line when they're drinking champagne because they're all alone up there. Well, here's to us.
yeah. It was a very strange film. Yeah. God, he was so small. I'm trying to pull up a
He was
picture here
tiny,
of.
comparatively. Oh,
Is that the actual actress that? Okay, I think this is the actual actress that. Yeah, looks like his child. I'm assuming that's the actress in Moonraker, right? Or is that his actual daughter?
I don't know. I'm not entirely sure. I'm gonna be totally
I
honest.
remember it was a very nerdy girl. I think she had the dual braids, but yeah, I know it was like he was just so
Yeah,
much bigger than her. Yeah, I think it was her. It was the little girl with the braids, little woman with the braids. Uh, but yeah, no,
yeah. That's her. That's
it was such a weird like tonal shift where it's like you had this cute little love story between like a 9 foot tall dude and like a 4 foot tall like nerdy girl. Yeah, ironically, definitely high tier. Unironically, like if you try to treat this as like a serious James Bond adventure, very difficult to take it
yeah.
seriously.
Look,
So
it's silly and it's outlandish, and I don't disagree with you, but I think that's why I liked it. And again, this is one of those Bond movies that not everybody else likes, but I love it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just going against the grain with what is conventionally loved as a Bond movie, but I love this movie.
Yeah, I would bump it up higher, ironically, lower, unironically. So,
All right, so put it at Moneypenny.
Moneypenny, yeah.
Yeah, put it at
Unfortunately, as fun as it is, like it's one of the most fun Bond movies, but it's also one of the dumbest.
It is, yeah.
uh, let's see, where is that? Moonraker.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. So I definitely like it a little better than I like Spy Who Loved Me,
Yeah,
but
it's at
yeah,
least more
yeah. All
interesting
right.
and more goofy, and has a lot more like ridiculous props and stuff like that.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So now we're okay. We
For Your
got
Eyes Only.
okay, still more ones. So we've got For Your Eyes Only. This one, I actually really good theme song. For Your Eyes Only,
Mhm.
really good theme song. Kind of like somber, and not the greatest plot, but I think it had like a
No.
really solid relationship with the leading lady. I think that like they kind of felt very genuine. I'll say. I think it had one of the
Yeah.
most genuine relationship with the Bond and the leading lady of all the Moore films. I'd argue, but overall,
Mhm.
not like the most zany plot. I think the standoff at the end was actually pretty dull. But
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be honest, like For Your Eyes Only, it's not the most memorable of Bond movies for me. It's okay. I remember the villain because he's played by Julian Glover, the Greek businessman.
yeah, I like the
But
Greek setting. I like the Greek setting a lot, like the kind of Greek islands and stuff like that. That was a really cool setting for
yeah,
me.
that's neat. Yeah, it is. But I mean, again, I remember it because he's played by Julian Glover, and
Hmm.
I love Julian Glover. So, for those of you who don't know who Julian Glover is, he played General Veers in Empire Strikes Back, who led the attack with the AT-ATs against the rebel base, and he was also Walter Donovan in Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade.
Yeah, he was the villain in Last Crusade. And he was also one of the lead Empire general guys. So yeah, no, I didn't
Yep.
know that name, but yeah, I've seen a lot of things. Yeah, it was a fine movie. I thought that the love story was pretty solid. And I'm part Greek, and I always liked Greece as a country, and I was a huge Greek mythology
Mhm.
buff growing up, so I probably colored my
Mhm.
appreciation of the setting. But overall, I remember I rewatched the standoff at the end, pretty like weak sauce a little bit, but
Yeah.
the build up to it and the
Yeah.
relationship and I think at the end, like she says, for your eyes only, darling, or whatever, and it's like, oh, it ties together. It's nice,
Yeah.
nice love story. The love story was very strong.
He said it. He said it. He
he
said
said
it.
he said the word.
So here's the thing. I know the theme song because of Sheena Easton, and like the one song I know by Sheena Easton is "9 to 5," and I love that song. Um,
No, just
and I
laughing at
know that through Seinfeld.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just love it laughing at Crossington. The ending is two elderly men fighting on a mountain. Yes, that's absolutely true.
Yeah, it's like Metal Gear Solid 4, just not as memorable.
Snake, what's wrong?
Yeah,
Snake,
so I don't.
Snake.
Yeah, so it's like I don't know. It's not the most memorable one for me. It's okay. I mean, serviceable. I
Yeah,
would put it.
I think it has this like one of the strongest love stories, like right up there with um,
On His
Shalashowska's
Majesty's.
favorite, yeah, Majesty Secret Service. It seemed like a genuine love story that would last beyond the end of the film. Of course, it doesn't, but for that reason, I like it. But yeah, as a film, I don't know if it's as memorable or as enjoyable as some of the ones in Right on the Money Penny. So I'll knock that down a peg. If it were up
Yeah,
to me, I'd bump it up a peg, but I honestly can't defend it that strongly. I just like the
yeah.
love story in the Greek setting.
Yeah, it's a decent spy film, but it just doesn't do enough to push it up for me.
Yeah, and
It's a
and
yeah.
we definitely noticed because Moore did a lot of films. He did 8 Bond films. So as time went on, he started to get a little slower, a little bit, he was still a really good looking guy and everything like that, but he was a little bit like he was losing the energy. He was getting a little tired. So
Yeah.
Next one is Octo Kitty. Octo Kitty,
I was gonna say Octo Kitty.
which I don't even remember anything about that one, other than the fact that everything that
Oh,
the lady said was like sexually charged. It's like everything at it was a double entendre or hitting on him or whatever. But yeah, let's see. So a renegade Soviet general means to detonate a nuclear bomb at a circus show on a NATO base, leading to unilateral Western disarmament and leaving the West defenseless against the Warsaw Pact countries. Okay, a lot going on. All I remember is Roger Moore hanging out with a lot of hot chicks. That's all I remember of that movie.
you could say he hung out with 8 different hot chicks.
Oh, eight, yeah.
8 maybe particular body parts of these 8 particular hot chicks.
Okay, a movie called Octopussy, and there's only two shags. Come on, what are you guys doing?
It's like you're trying not to do it. The poster's ridiculous. Zoom in on the poster. On the poster.
Yeah, let me pull up this poster. This poster is wild. Like, look at that. That's, I mean, classic. Got the accent lighting and everything like that. But yeah, it's a bit wild. It's got the Fabergé egg. Got the button on his thing. A hand on the buttons. Hand on the gun. Martini touching his ear. Knife and hands also like adjusting his tie and stuff. So like a lot of thought goes into it. Oh, was this the one?
So
Was this the one that had the really cool airplane at the beginning? There was one movie that had a really cool airplane scene at the beginning. Was this it?
I don't know. Maybe I do know this is the Fabergé egg one, and this whole
Yeah,
thing is like the whole Fabergé egg plot. Um, or it starts off with like a Fabergé egg, and then it leads into like another nuclear bomb NATO base plot. Here's
yeah.
some trivia. So an octopussy is actually a pair of eights in poker, which is where the
Oh,
name comes from.
so it isn't like that bad.
No,
It definitely is
no,
playing on the double meaning there.
yeah, yeah.
But
Which I actually did not know that. But again, we have a theme song, "All Time High" by Rita Coolidge. I wonder why they don't have a theme song called "Octopussy." Um,
just take like a Goldfinger song and just like Octopussy.
it's,
Just like
now,
replace the words.
Pizza, I agree with you. It is objectively the best movie title of them all. As a film, I don't know. It's been a while. It's been a while since I've seen it, and I'm just not. There's just so little that stands out to me in my mind. I know he goes to India, but just comparatively, just it's not there.
There was one movie, I can't for the life of me remember which one it was, but it starts out with, I think it was Roger Moore, maybe it was one of the others, but he starts out in like an airplane is like crashing, and that particular set piece was actually quite entertaining. I think he like, I don't know if he's like phoning Moneypenny at the time. It's pretty vague, but I thought that might have been that one since it has it on the cover. But who knows? It might be maybe it was Moonraker. I don't know. But
Eh, no, I think it was Moonraker because that's when Jaws throws him out of the airplane,
oh, that could be it. Yeah,
right? This
yeah,
one starts off with the whole Fabergé egg plot,
yeah,
right? And then there's like the whole circus.
yeah. Despite like all the big things that were happening, I remember this one had a very felt like a very small scale. It felt didn't feel like the stakes were all that high, despite the
Well,
stakes being high.
well, eventually, yeah, like it starts off that small, and then you have that rogue Soviet general, and he's going to, kind of drop. He's gonna like drop, like nuke the NATO bases and let the Warsaw Pact just kind of countries just roll over them.
Yeah,
I do remember that much, but like, yeah, it's just I don't have much of a memory of this one, and I know I've seen it. It's just been eons since I've seen it.
yeah. It suffers the problem of just not having many standout factors of it. So
Yeah, and I will say this. So now, a little bit of casting. So by this point, Roger Moore actually wanted to retire from doing Bond movies.
yeah,
He actually did. His contract had been for 3 films. After he finished The Spy Who Loved Me, he finished it, and then every other film was a film by film. Every other film he did was a film by film basis. So
yeah,
he was reluctant to come back and do the role. So they started testing some other actors. Timothy Dalton was brought up again as a replacement. Okay. So initially, Timothy Dalton was, yeah, you're right, has been, it's been eons. Well done. I've seen this movie. So after Sean Connery retired, Timothy Dalton was one of the first actors they went to, and Timothy Dalton said, "No, I'm too young to do it." So Roger Moore's thinking about retiring. They go back to Timothy Dalton. He says, "No, I can't do it. I think he had a filming commitment, something." Um, so they did screen tests, and one of the actors that they actually did a screen test with was James Brolin.
He would have been. I mean, he's not English, but he probably would fit the bill decently, I think.
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, this was also around the same time when they're. When was the Sam Neill screen
That's
test?
like 80, 84, 86, 84,
86.
86.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it was after this. Okay, so it was after this, but Sam Neill was also cast. That's later on, though.
Yeah,
Anyway,
there's
so producers eventually wore him down and brought Roger Moore back.
yeah, I get the Roger Moore thing sounds a lot like what I feel Daniel Craig's in right now, where he's just like he only really wanted to do like a few, but he just kind of keeps on coming back because it's a great paycheck.
Yeah, yeah. And reportedly, James Brolin, he was ready to move to London to do the role. So
I don't know how you do the accent. You have to have the accent, but
yeah, yeah.
if you look on YouTube, there's a screen test with Sam Neill and James Bond, and he actually looks pretty good. I totally watch a few movies
I,
of Sam Neill as
I
James
would
Bond.
I would have loved Sam Neill, James Bond.
Yeah.
He was great. So here's something else. So uh it is the only Bond film omitted from Film Hardy's science fiction magazine explicitly because it is non-science fiction. Octopussy. Everything else has enough with the gadgets and all the plot lines to be science fiction except for this one.
Science fiction, interesting. I guess just
Yeah.
because like tech gadgets and stuff like that. Ooh,
Yeah.
that's really zoomed in. But this is a really low res rip of the Sam Neill James Bond screen test. So I think he could pull it off. He's got the kind of clean cut, you know, thing going
Yeah.
on, and he's yeah. But who knows?
So yeah, so I'll be honest. I think this is a Doctor Nope because there's just so little to talk about here, and what there is here, the plot's just kind of like, eh.
Yeah, it's just its biggest crime is just not being very memorable. Just a very kind of forgettable movie. Nothing to really stand out. Like better to stand out with you know really like it's not as I don't think it's as offensive you know to me as Live and Let Die, but Live and Let Die was a lot more interesting at least. So unfortunately kind of its biggest crime is
Mm,
just not being very interesting.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And the final Roger Moore movie. So he
Yeah.
twisted his arm once more.
By this time he'd been doing Bond since gosh
71? No,
70
73 was his first one.
73. So good. I guess it's only been like about 12 years, but it's
Yeah.
definitely quite a run for James Bond. This one I'm not a fan of. You Do Kill, not so much of a fan of. Definitely has
Uh,
I mean, it's got Max Zorin, you know, Christopher Walken. He was a pretty good villain from what I remember.
yes.
Mayday was very memorable. We all remember Mayday, played by Grace Jones, very striking individual.
Yep.
But I just remember, oh, Tanya Roberts was the Bond girl. I remember her. Yeah, I remember she was in like she in Beastmaster, a couple other things. I don't remember, but some
She
decent
was
casting. Uh,
she was in Beastmaster. You were right. She was Kiri.
yeah,
I had to look that up, but yeah, she was.
yeah. Um, so not it's kind of one of those movies that just had a lot of. Oh, apparently David Bowie was set to be Max Zorin, but I think he turned it down. That would have been interesting. But
Okay, well, first of all, a David Bowie Max Zorin would have been awesome. Like, I
I
think that would have been great.
David Bowie's actually a great actor. Just don't watch Men Who Fell to Earth because that's a terrible movie. Um,
Oh, you know who Tanya Roberts is? I just realized this. She played Donna's mom in the '70s show. That '70s show.
oh, I never watched that show, but I'll take your word for it. I almost want to say she was in V, the original '80s series too, but I could be completely wrong about that.
That I don't know about.
Yeah. I definitely remember her from Beastmaster.
Yeah. All right, so View to a Kill. I have several things to say about this movie. First of all, Duran Duran did the theme song, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
I liked it. Um, the plot is at the time silly, but if you look at it from a 2020 perspective, it is probably the most relatable thing that I can probably say. So Max Zorin wants to destroy Silicon Valley in a man-made earthquake, and that way he can get a monopoly on the microchip market. So it's so insane. He just has these stupid machines that can create these earthquakes, and he plans to level Silicon Valley. Just and then he'll rise from the ashes, and like, oh, it's what?
So
What the
so
fuck?
very stupid evil plot, but definitely it definitely spot on toward like the trend of the time, which was technology and computers and chips and
Yeah,
things like that. But like just a very very over the top plot to accomplish
yeah,
that.
like
Like
stupidly over the plot, over the top. Now, I really like some of the gadgets, like the credit card lockpick was awesome,
yeah, that was fun.
and the ring camera is like really striking to some of the tech we have these days. But like, it was just so ridiculous. And then you have that final scene with the Golden Gate Bridge, like with the fight right on top of it. You
Yeah,
know,
it was just
it's just
little bit too
yeah,
over the top, little bit. Um, Roger was not really into it anymore. It was just that was definitely when I was feeling the more fatigue. I was like, okay, we kind of need something new. We need something fresh here.
yeah.
So yeah, not the greatest. Some striking characters like Mayday's kind of a classic character just because of how memorable and striking she was. It was very visually
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. Mayday
Uh,
Mayday was awesome. I think Mayday is probably the most redeeming thing about this movie. Um and I do really like Christopher Walken as Mag Zorn, but like holy hell was this just all over the place. Just like what the fuck?
yeah, I actually want to say, is this the first time there's been a female henchman? Probably.
No, because didn't Kitty Galore count as the female henchman in Goldfinger? Because she was working for Goldfinger in the beginning of
She
the
wasn't a
movie.
henchman though. She was more just a. Let me see what they consider the henchman was for Goldfinger here.
Well,
Um,
okay, she was a henchwoman.
she was the Bond girl. She was like the turncoat Bond girl that happened to be working for the bad guy, but then turned to Bond and everything like that. Odd Job was the henchman.
Okay, but then I do know that you had number in You Only Live Twice, Helga Brandt, so she was working for Spectre.
Okay. Well, she's one of three considered three of the henchmen, so I guess she wasn't the first. Definitely one of the most memorable henchmen. That
Yeah,
and just that
easily.
how she was intimidating too. Mayday was so
Very.
that
Yeah,
was the that was
Mayday was absolutely wonderful, but just yeah, everything about View to a Kill is just so underwhelming, but over the top at the same time. You know what I mean? Like it was the plot is ridiculous, the set pieces are ridiculous, everything's over the top, everything's it's like 80s and high stakes and high octane and this and that, and then there's no payoff. There's
yeah
no
it.
payoff to
It's
anything.
it's it's that suspension, ironically, suspension bridge, suspension of disbelief, where the stakes and the plots get so crazy, and the characters and the drama get so loose and disconnected that you just kind of lose interest altogether. Like when it's a bit more grounded, or you have a bit more of a practical plot or whatever, you get more engaged. But this is just like we're doing earthquakes.
Yeah.
I want to level Silicon Valley with man-made earthquakes so that
Yeah.
people will buy my microchip.
Yeah, it's just yeah, it's just not a fan of this one. Not a fan. Like this is one of the movies I have not seen recently, and I think that speaks volumes about what I think of it. As I haven't gone back and revisited this one with the
Yeah.
frequency that I revisit some of the other movies. So
Yeah, like
yeah,
like if you said, "Oh, movie night, we're gonna watch Goldfinger," I'd be like, "I'm there." Movie
yeah,
night, we're
movie
watch
night. Let's watch
like
A View to a Kill. It's like
like I'll,
it's
I'll skip
fine.
I'll skip it.
Yeah. You
I'll
know
watch
what?
I'll
I
watch
might
Twilight.
rewatch this. I might rewatch this soon, just so I can kind of refresh my memory of it and see if like my memories of it hold up. But I don't think it's gonna change my mind, and I don't think I'm gonna find it as redeeming.
Yeah, what we'll have to do sometime is I'll force you to watch what I consider the most underrated film that you didn't like as much, and then you have me watch what you consider the most underrated film that I didn't like so much, and so
You do know I'm gonna force you to watch License to Kill, right? Like
yeah,
that's happening, which is going we're going to be talking about very shortly.
yeah, very shortly. So Living Daylights. So yeah, they finally got Timothy Dalton. He'd been like a James Bond probable for a
Oh,
long time.
where do we rank it? Where do we put View to a Kill?
Oh, it's so forgettable that I forgot to rank it. View to a Kill. Is it even on here?
Doctor
Yeah.
Nope or Double O Nothing?
Yes,
I'm thinking
Mayday.
one of those two.
Yeah, it was not offensively bad, but it was just very bland, very. I felt nothing at the end of it. That's the problem with that.
Yeah,
I,
just
I,
like
I
Renard at the end of the A World Is Not Enough. I feel nothing. Ah ah ah.
yeah, even some of those. Not to get too far ahead. We do have to pick up the pace though, because it is like 11:23 where I am.
Yeah, we
But
do. We do.
yeah, we'll have plenty to talk about that. So let's pick up the pace. Living
Yeah,
Daylights. We got new Bond, Timothy Dalton. Recently
awesome
watched.
Bond.
Uh,
Awesome Bond. Timothy Dalton's awesome.
I liked him in this one. I did not like him in License to Kill. This one, he
Oof.
plays a pretty slick Bond. I know it's a hot take, but Living Daylights, like after all the Roger Moores and everything, and he was kind of done with the character and got kind of boring. I think Living Daylights is a great comfort Bond. It's just like
Mhm.
a simple plot. You've got some like Russian, again Russian
Arms
plot,
dealers. Yeah.
yeah, arms dealers, a turncoat, somebody trying to, escape to the West, double crossing, assassins, milkmen, things like that. Assassin
Mhm.
milkmen, literal thing. Um, but
Played by like what German supermodels or
something like
whatever.
that. Yeah, we're very, very weird. I don't consider it the best Bond, but like there's even like a slide where like he and the Bond girl like sliding down like a snowy slope, and so it's a very
Yeah.
it's
When he's
very
using the cello and he's using her cello as the yeah.
very very silly, very not too. It never gets too silly, but it's a comfort. It's like a roller coaster Bond. It's
Okay.
like just like,
So,
hey, you enjoy Bond, that you get here's some Bond. Nothing too deep,
all
just
right.
fun. Yeah.
If On His Majesty's Secret Service was the next movie to come off after the Roger Moore films, and then we went into the Timothy Dalton ones, I would have a much more positive opinion on On His Majesty's Secret Service. Because I feel On His Majesty's Secret Service and then the two Dalton movies make for a perfect trilogy. And
Yeah, a little tough with like if you put like Majesty's Secret Service in the middle because Living Daylights is very kind of like semi happy-go-lucky despite its themes.
yeah,
Secret Service falls in love, gets married, wife gets killed. Follow
yeah.
that with License to Kill. All of a sudden, License to Kill is a much better film in my book.
Exactly. So in Living Daylights, you have Timothy Dalton play this Bond who's just he's sick of it. He's getting tired of the spy life. He tells like his agent in the beginning, stuff the orders. I'm not going to kill this girl. She's not a professional. I only kill professionals. Great line. And yeah, he's helping a KGB agent defect, which is part of a ruse. Which then he's in bed with like arms smugglers, all tied into like the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. Great movie. Great movie. I love it. And I love the edge that Timothy Dalton brings to the film. And I will say that Joe Baker, who only has like 4 or 5 scenes in this movie as this American general who's smuggling arms, who later comes back to play Jack Wade, he is wonderful as a villain, and the standoff he has against Timothy Dalton is excellent.
Yeah, it's an interesting. It's a bit of an interesting twist in that it's like, yeah, you got sort of I think ex-military. Was he ex-military or something like that?
So, he's an American general selling weapons to
Yeah,
a Soviet general
he-
in exchange for opium, which he then resells in the United States.
so he's like
Obviously, the
he's like a
profit.
corrupt general. So he's like
Yeah,
using his position to smuggle weapons and get
exactly.
drugs and stuff. So he's a really scummy guy in a what should be very respectable position. So he's an interesting guy, and I think they liked him so much that yeah, they brought him back for the
GoldenEye and
yeah, the uh Remington Steele. What's the guy's name?
Jack Wade. They brought him back as
Yeah,
Jack Wade.
brought him Jack Wade in the
Or Brosnan. Oh, or
yeah,
the
Pierce
Pierce
Brosnan.
Brosnan
Yeah,
adventure.
yeah.
Yes, I'm
For
trying
some
to
reason, I
say, yeah,
remembered Remington Steele. I've
because
never
that's
even
what he
watched
was
the
in. Yeah.
show. Yeah. Yeah, they brought in the Brosnan films, and he was a fun side character there. But nothing's better than his role in Mitchell, which if you ever want to watch that film, watch the Mystery Science Theater cover of Mitchell. It's a great film.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah, Living Daylights is like a very again one kill, one shag, like one woman, one death in the entire film. So it's a very low violence,
No,
romance kind of film.
Miriam Dabo though. Miriam Dabo. You need one girl.
Yeah, no, she was obviously very beautiful. Yeah, it's just a feel good movie. Honestly, like I don't really have any problems with it. It wasn't like the deepest, or anything like that. Like when it's going on the snow and going through the slide and like using the cello as a thing, like a little over the top. I would put it like probably in like the blue tier, right on the money penny. Like not fantastic, but just a solid, just fun, fun. Exactly what you needed
Yeah.
after A View to a Kill. You know.
Yeah, I could put that right on the money penny. It's a solid movie. It's not my favorite Dalton movie. Spoiler alert, that one's License to Kill, but it's there. Yeah, it's there.
So
All right,
yeah,
I feel we're gonna go back and forth on License to Kill a lot. So,
yeah. We do have to pick up the pace though because we haven't gotten to the Brosnan yet. So
oof, yeah.
but yeah, License to Kill. For the longest time that was one of my least favorite Bond films. I'll tell you why. I don't think that the plot involves. It's actually a pretty clever plot. Like it's kind of I think it's on along the lines of like say Goldfinger, which it's a very practical evil plot. Basically, they have this special way of hiding. Is it crack cocaine inside of like gasoline? I think it is like where
Mhm.
they're able to fuse it into a liquid
Yep.
and transport huge amounts of drugs in gas tankers, and then they're able to extract it pretty much unharmed. So it's like a great way to basically
Yep.
like all these movies around that time were like, how do you hide drugs? Like even Cheech and Chong was one of the plot of that film was like making an entire car made of pot. So like a lot
Mhm.
of movies around that time were about disguising drugs in really elaborate ways. I just think that's not a good. I don't think that's a good James Bond film. He is one of his
That's
darkest
not the plot,
moments.
though. So, see, here's the thing. This is why I disagree with you. The drug smuggling thing, that was peripheral to it. That was just there to show you why Franz Sanchez was as wealthy as he was and as deadly as he was, right? To show you how clever of a drug dealer as he is. The plot of the movie has nothing to do with drugs. The plot of the movie is revenge. Because the opening scene, Felix Leiter finally gets married. What happens? Felix Leiter is working for the DEA. I think it's DEA, and he's hunting after this guy Franz Sanchez. So we have this American agent going after this drug kingpin. What does this guy do? He kidnaps Felix Leiter, this agent, on his wedding night, and then he dips him into a shark tank to have his leg bitten off
Pretty
and
rough.
murders Felix Leiter's wife. Bond can't stand this anymore. He's already reeling from just being tired of it all in the last movie. He resigns from MI6 to go get revenge for his friend. That's what this movie is. It's not drug dealing. It's my friend was assaulted by this guy. I'm going to fucking kill him because that's what a
So
good friend does.
it's a very personal revenge film, which
It is.
it's actually like this plot in like Death Wish
Mm-hmm.
would be like if you made this into a Death Wish movie, perfect.
Yep.
It's like a great Death Wish esque movie, like 80s revenge flick. Throw Mel Gibson or I forget his name, Death Wish guy, or something like that in there. Great 80s, very American film. That's the thing that
It's yeah.
it's a very Americanized film, probably one of the most Americanized Bond films,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's why I kind of feel a little bit like a gut reaction to it. Um, I just have to look this up. One of the gadgets is manta ray disguise. Does he actually disguise himself as a manta
So what
ray?
he does, he gets this like little carpet. So in the early game, there's this a fisherman who's tied in with Sanchez, and he's the guy who gets the shark, right? And in order to infiltrate the boat, Bond actually has this kind of tarp, I guess, which makes him look like a giant manta ray, so he can get close to the boat, and then he sheds it and then goes up. Because if you look at it on a camera, you look like just another manta ray. It sounds silly, but it's actually in the context of the movie very, very clever. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I'm seeing it here. You can kind of see his legs right there. He's got flippers.
Yeah,
He's disguised himself as a manta ray. That's the thing.
yeah.
Okay, I didn't remember
Um,
that part, but
yeah.
it's in there.
So other highlights of this movie. Benicio del Toro
Yeah,
is
Benicio del
amazing.
Toro, solid. Yeah,
He's amazing. Okay, Robert Davi, he's amazing. I love the villains in this movie so much. I love them so fucking much. And then there's that other villain, and I can't remember his name, but the preacher. And yes, I see you, Crossington. Bless your heart. And they're using it as a
Bronson.
front for the drug smuggling. He's basically a evangelist. Bless your heart.
Bless your heart. Yeah.
Find it.
Yeah, Charles
Oh,
Bronson. Yeah, this would be a great Charles Bronson vehicle. There's like the explosions, there's the revenge plot. I just don't think it really fits the, like, this is all spoilers, unfortunately, but like, when he gets pissed, he goes rogue and punches M in the gut. I'm like, that's not. James Bond would nod and say, something quippy and then do his own thing anyway. He wouldn't punch M in the gut. That was kind of the line I don't think he would have crossed. He's a little bit too smart for that. But
no, well, again, this isn't spy James Bond. This is James Bond who just wants revenge. And yeah, it was played by Wayne Newton. It was Wayne Newton's character. Love him. Part of the Sanchez cartel. Um, yeah, I mean, I think this movie is shaken not stirred through and through. I think this is an excellent movie, start to finish. It's grittier because it's not a spy flick, but if you look at it, it's so well crafted from start to finish, and just everything is incredible for it.
yeah, I don't disagree with the things you're praising it about. I think that they have good casting. The lead villain is like he's got a face that just screams villain. The pock marks and the scars and stuff.
Robert Davi, yeah,
Yeah,
he's just great.
I just think the plot is not a James Bond plot. So like throw in Bronson or Mel Gibson or anybody else pretty much and make it into like an American revenge action plot, you know, I'd easily put it into like, B B plus tier. But for James Bond, I'd put it into like Doctor Nope. So
Oof,
we're at an impasse here.
oof, oof. All right, well, we'll cut it in the middle and put it on His Majesty's with like heavy protests from me.
Yeah, like properly between us two would probably be like Majesty's Plus, but unfortunately we can't do,
Yeah,
halfway.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I know you really like it. I had a particularly gut reaction to it when I watched it
That's
because I'm like,
fair.
this is not a James Bond film. Like again, everything else, like I said, I swear to God, there's one of the. I saw a movie with Charles Bronson with a very very similar plot, which he was blowing up like gas tankers, and I'm like, that's what it should have been. It should have been a Bronson movie. It was a Bronson movie about like you know,
Yeah.
driven too far or something like that. Starring Charles Bronson, 1989. I'd watch it. Great movie.
Yeah, you know what? And I can get that as like a generic action movie. It works a lot better rather
Yeah,
than a Bond movie. But I don't know, man. I think as a follow up to Living Daylights, I think it's great.
like
Maybe I'm just biased because I love Timothy Dalton, but I thought this movie was awesome. I
imagine
guess
for
yeah, so, a side quest style, let's call it, like the way what we said before.
like almost alternate history because like imagine after all of that, all of his antics, how the hell would he get his job back? He just
Well,
slugged M in the face and like broke out of like MI6 or whatever, and yeah, no, it'd be a tough one to repair that plot line.
it's a good thing that we have a new M,
Yeah,
in the next
yeah.
movie.
Yeah, so here we go. Probably biggest paradigm shift in the whole series was when they rebooted. It's been, I think, I don't. This feels like an official like new canon reboot almost. Like I
It
don't know if
absolutely is.
I don't think it really. Um,
So,
it
so
feels. Go ahead.
it's a continuation. Just to
Yeah,
kind of sorry to cut you off, but I know what you're saying. But it's a continuation, but they do it in the smartest way.
yeah,
So they have a new M, and they have Pierce Brosnan play James Bond, and they act as though nothing's changed. But then they have that one scene right in the beginning where they have the encounter between Dame Judy Dench and Pierce Brosnan,
yeah,
and she basically says, "You don't like me because I'm a bean counter, I'm a pencil pusher." He's like, "Yeah, that's about right." Well, I think you're a dinosaur. You're stuck in the Cold War and you're not getting along with the times.
yeah.
So they're casting Bond as this throw over from the Cold War. Well, the Cold War's done, right? Where this is a new era. We have new things to worry about, and we have a new M who's brought up, but she's like this office administrator. She's not of that relic of the Cold War. So
Yeah.
they do that to kind of create the new paradigm for Bond, and I think it's the they do it in the best way.
Yeah, this begins a trend, and it's not so bad yet, but it begins a trend where the writers really start railing into James Bond as a character. They start criticizing James Bond as a character like repeatedly throughout his movies. They do that a lot in like Skyfall, especially,
Mhm.
and some other
Yeah,
films as well.
yeah,
And here like M Stripe calls him a sexist and everything like that.
yeah.
And it's like, yeah, fair point, but it definitely approaches the the 1960s James Bond character from a 1995 perspective.
Yeah.
It's a very much a modern approach.
Yeah.
They're definitely tackling these things. That being said, GoldenEye is a fucking amazing film.
It's amazing. Oh
Yeah,
no, like this is easily one of my favorite Bond movies, and I'm not even purely like talking from a nostalgia point of view. I mean, like this is probably, I think, one of the strongest
yeah,
movies in the entire like filmography. You have just such a great loaded cast of characters. As far as a reboot goes, I think they've done everything they needed to do in order to bring in this new Bond in this new era. They have the theme song sung by Tina Turner, which is incredible. And I may
yeah.
not like you too, but they did a damn good job writing the song. I'll say that much.
And
Uh,
it was written by Bono and the Edge from U2. So it's like U2, Tina Turner collaboration, really baller song, really great. One of the best openings, I think. The animations of the openings with like I think the you got the people with like pickaxes and the Cold War imagery and stuff. Really
yeah,
solid
yeah.
tone setter. And like I think it's one of the few ones that had like an excellent cold open with the bungee jump scene. Like
Oh yeah,
that was
right
just
into the
a
facility. Yeah,
yeah, that was like, and you could tell almost all that was practical, like probably stunt work or whatever. But
for
there's
sure.
something
And
gritty. There's something amazingly gritty about this film where almost everything seemed really practical. Occasionally, you'll see like a composite effect or whatever, but that was seemed to be completely real. There was a man who jumped off the off of like a dam, with a bungee rope.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly. And can we
yeah.
talk about like how strong the supporting cast is too,
Oh
between like
yeah.
Robbie Coltrane, playing not Pushkin. Oh, what the hell's his name? Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue.
Pushkin was the
Pushkin.
general.
Pushkin was the general who was killed by Oromov during the questioning scene. He was good too, like for the couple scenes he was there.
Yeah,
Oh,
he played like the mob boss, right?
yeah,
Valentin Zukovsky, yeah,
Zukovsky, that's it. Yeah,
yeah,
the former KGB agent turned mob boss with the limp,
yeah,
and then he has a caviar factory later on.
yeah. Like every character had like a whole unspoken backstory. Well, one of the great things, and this is a bit of a universe expanding. We see another Double O agent. I think one for maybe the first time in the series, or
No, no. In the Living Daylights, there's an opening scene where there's this training section, and they're training multiple
right, and a couple of them
new
die.
double
Yeah,
agents, and then they're being assassinated, and then that's when they do that face reveal to like, hey, it's Timothy Dalton. Um, yeah,
yeah. So, but we've seen this is the first time we see him in like a truly like impressive capacity where they're raiding a base. It's also just has a really epic story because I think the beginning starts in the past with like before the Cold War ended.
hmm
If I'm correct, they're raiding a Soviet base. It's James Bond 007 and Trevea Treve Trevelyan.
Trevelyan,
Sean Bean's character, Alex Trevelyan. Um,
Alec, Alec Trevelyan.
Yeah, Alec
Yeah,
Trevelyan, and 006, I want to say, double
double O
six.
six. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
and you see like these two badass double O agents working together, and that's a really interesting kind of universe building. We never really saw that before.
Yeah,
And obviously, like something goes wrong, and there's like a moral quandary, like the mission or the humans. Bond chooses the mission, you know,
yeah, yeah.
at the cost of his other agent because the mission is the most important, unfortunately. And that's something that's a really strong theme that later sparks the entire story later because then we fast forward to modern day. We don't know, it was like 10, 20 years, something like that, and we see post Soviet Russia. when there's just like the kind of there's lingering shadow of the USSR throughout the whole movie, which I really love that setting where it's
Yeah.
like they're no longer the Soviets, but there's that deep-seated, you know,
There's that holdover. Yeah, there's
yeah,
that holdover of that Soviet era.
yeah,
So yeah, I think we're both in agreement. This movie's golden.
yeah, Golden, absolutely. If I had to pick, probably my favorite Bond movie, just because it was just so iconic, and it also spawned one of the best, if not the best, James Bond games of all time. And yeah, it ticks off all the boxes of like this is how you reboot something. You take the spirit of the original, you refresh it, you reimagine some things, you add some twists, you change a couple characters, while still keeping the basic spirit of it. And also want to talk about the soundtrack a little bit. How they took the iconic James Bond soundtrack, but added that cold, echoey electronic cover, where it's like,
Yeah,
yeah, everything's got that kind of strong, echoey sort of sound, which is yeah, it
yeah.
takes the original
It's
soundtrack,
more
but
ambient.
yeah, more ambient and you know, still holds up today too, which is impressive.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Probably one of the best Bond villains
Unfortunately,
too.
Tomorrow Never Dies isn't quite as good.
No, no, but I want to say probably my favorite Bond villain as well because there's just so many more layers to it because it's a former
Mhm,
friend, former colleague, and the kind of betrayal aspect, and the fact that he's
mhm.
two double O agents facing off against each other, and the whole twist, that effect there. Though, like it was definitely a an interesting way of doing a villain, and I think that also one of my favorite Sean Bean roles as well, right up there with Boromir. Or
Mhm.
sorry, not yeah, Boromir, yeah, Boromir.
Yeah, Barber. Yeah,
But
you said it right. Anyway, I was trying to transition into the next one,
yeah,
and I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize. But
but
yeah,
I want to.
unfortunately, Tomorrow Never Dies, not so good.
Yeah, I that's a movie that I actually want to watch again. Oh, damn. GoldenEye, 25 kills. Most deadly Bond film yet. That's a lot of kills.
Yeah,
He kicks some ass in
and
that movie.
unfortunately, Tomorrow Never Dies is stuck with 23,
Yeah.
so not quite.
So Tomorrow Never Dies. I actually really like Michelle Yeoh in this. I think she was one of the better
She was awesome.
Bond girls. She was like actually could
She
kick
was awesome in
ass,
this. Yeah,
and I loved
yeah,
her in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. So that's kind of like another. That was a few years later, but that was another great role from her. But
yeah. I love Michelle Yeoh. Period. She's great.
yeah. Now I want to watch it again because the villain I like Jonathan Pryce in a lot of stuff. The villain's
Hmm.
plot is very interesting. It's about like media
It's weak.
manipulation and stuff like that. Like that
So
it's yeah.
that that part is good. That part is good. The whole media manipulation thing, but then it
Hmm.
culminates into like this stealth ship being stolen with missiles, and then he's basically trying to eliminate Chinese leadership so then he can have exclusive broadcasting rights. It's like, I mean, yeah, real world. Crossington, you're right. Yeah,
Yeah.
aged like wine.
So
It,
it was
ugh,
not necessarily a good
but
film, but it's an incredibly relevant film. Like it actually
it's
tapped.
sloppy.
What's
Yeah,
it?
it's relevant.
Yeah. So like it may not be as entertaining as it is just like it definitely had its finger on the pulse of society. Um, I'd like to watch it again to see if I was what probably 13 when that came out, so maybe I'd get a little bit more out of it when watching again when I'm a little bit older and I kind of understand a little bit more about media manipulation and stuff like that. But
Yeah, so yeah, like you said, it has a finger on the pulse, and everything it talks about is more relevant now than ever before.
yeah,
I just don't think it's that strong of a Bond movie because as competent as it is, it's just it's middling. It's very, very middling. It doesn't do anything to really push the envelope or stand out aside from the presence of Pierce Brosnan and Michelle Yeoh, right? And Jonathan Pryce to a point. And also, I did like the woman who played Jonathan Pryce's wife, who was like an ex of Brosnan's, that little love triangle thing. Um, but it had one of the most forgettable henchmen. I had to look up a picture of this guy because his name is Stamper. I'm like, who is this guy? I don't remember him. He's
yeah, yeah. It was a Not the best outing, not terrible, definitely watchable, but yeah, there's a disconnect definitely between the media stuff and like them stolen missiles, and I don't even remember the last act of the film, but I did like Michelle
They're on the
Yeoh.
stealth boat. There's a shootout. Yeah,
Yeah, there's something in the water with Michelle Yeoh. I remember that,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah, not the strongest, but definitely uh, it's a product of its time. But like a lot of movies around the '90s, it definitely tapped into something that's very relevant now. So
Yeah.
respectable for that. Serviceable,
Serviceable.
yeah, not the
Serviceable.
greatest.
Serviceable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so Tomorrow Never Dies. So we're getting a definite heavy middle here, but I guess that's to be expected. Now World is not
Yeah.
enough. Okay. So
Now
there's like this
okay, I'll come out right say it. I like this movie a lot. I liked it a lot.
interesting. Yeah, I like the fact that it doesn't play the standard Bond rules are not clear at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like what you
Yeah.
think is the love interest is actually the villain. You know?
Yeah. And it's the first female villain in the series.
Yeah. Like it definitely plays with your
Named
expectations,
of
but it's set up in a way that it's not just like, pulling the rug out from under you suddenly, kind of like a certain Star Wars film. Um, but
Yeah, I
yeah,
was gonna say it's the last Jedi of the Bond
yeah.
films.
I mean, Denise Richards at her prime was gorgeous, but she's a terrible actress. I didn't believe her
She
for a
was
second.
fine in here.
She was okay, but I didn't
She
believe
was
her for a
okay.
second as like a nuclear physicist or whatever she was. Like
No,
that was
no,
far
no, no.
fetched. I believed
A little bit.
what's her name in The Saint as being
Sophie
uh
Marceau. Oh,
yeah, no, Sophie Marceau is fine in this. But I believed what's her name in The
she's
Saint as like the inventor of cold fusion much better than Denise Richards as Dr. Christmas Jones. Like some, she's like a
such a
nuclear
dumb
scientist or something
name.
like that, wasn't she? And
Such a dumb name.
and
But like like yeah, go on. Sorry, go on.
sorry, I'm gonna cut you off. Sorry, go ahead.
No, no, no. You were talking. Go ahead. Sorry.
Christmas Jones was written for the only sole reason to have that joke at the end. You remember the joke?
Oh yeah, I've always wanted to have Christmas in Turkey. Yeah, it
Something like that, or Christmas twice a year, one of those two. I forget what it was.
was Christmas in Turkey. I've always wanted to have Christmas in Turkey because they ended in Istanbul. The plot was the poisoning of the Caspian.
Yeah, it was pretty dumb. But I think that
Well,
they
okay. The final plot was kind of dumb because it's like, oh, I'm going to, get a monopoly on oil from the Caspian Sea with my new like oil pipeline, which is pretty relevant when you think about it. When you're talking
yeah,
about oil
sure.
supplies, if you control oil supplies and flows from Eastern Europe to Western Europe, it gives you. But it's built up to that point because she's also using the terrorist Renard, who I think is a really interesting villain, even though he's kind of like the henchman in the movie.
Yeah, yeah.
He's super interesting because you have this terrorist who is part of like this revolutionary group and is slowly going to die because of the bullet that's in his head and it's slowly moving closer and
Yep.
closer to his brain. He ends up kidnapping her and she gets Stockholm syndrome. And that's the plot. And I'm like, well, that's actually a pretty interesting setup. And so they assassinate her father so she can inherit his fortune. I
And
thought that
then
was awesome, actually.
yeah, and then you find out that she's actually kind of pulling the strings at the end. Like she's actually more of
Yeah.
he's actually doing it because he fell in love with her, and yeah, so there's a lot of layers, and people aren't what they seem at the beginning. So from that aspect, it's actually pretty cleverly written. It's definitely rebukes some of the typical like usually you can go into it, it's like okay, that's the lead love interest. She's gonna die first, and then he's gonna fall in love with her. That's the villain. That's the henchman. There you go.
Yeah.
But this one actually kind of really twisted around, and I remember that plot of the bullet in the brain. That was actually really interesting, and that's he couldn't feel
Mhm.
pain, right? That was or
Yeah.
was that
Yeah,
his
yeah.
thing?
Yeah, his nerve like it completely eliminated the nerve center in his brain or something, so he was immune to any sort of pain.
Yeah, which sounds like a bit like a superhero thing, but you know how much what you could do if you didn't have a pain reflex. Like you could do some crazy stuff with your
Yeah.
body, I'm sure.
Yeah. You're basically permanently on PCP.
Yeah. I remember this one had the BMW with the surface to air missiles. That was pretty awesome. Some of the
Yeah,
gadgets were pretty
yeah,
cool.
that was cool.
So
And
yeah,
Valentin Zukovsky came back before he was killed.
Yeah, exactly. So the kind of twists, the twists and turns, the unclear roles that people play, despite Denise Richards playing a nuclear physicist, um,
which is completely unbelievable.
completely unbelievable. Yeah, Sophie Marceau.
Oh, and sorry, the iconic scene when he's in the casino and he has the glasses on and they're the X-ray specs and he's just looking under everybody's suits and they're all like strapped to the teeth.
Yeah,
Like it's a European casino and it's like, a school in Florida or something. And, no, I'm just joking. This is mean.
and we wear guns. Open carry. We have guns on the outside. No, yeah, this is
That's
definitely
true.
this is definitely a Bond film carried by the villains. The villains are really solid in this one.
Yeah.
Their stories and
Yeah.
the plots and the twists and stuff like that. Also, I love the theme song. I was a huge Garbage fan growing up, and this is like
Mhm.
a really really listenable theme song. The World Is Not Enough by Garbage. So that always not puts it
Yeah.
a peg. So actually, talking about it more, I actually think this one was pretty solid. Definitely not in GoldenEye territory, but
No.
do you think it's good enough for
For me, it's
Shaken Not
shaken,
Stirred?
not stirred.
Really?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
for me, I think this movie is excellent. It's thoroughly enjoyable. I'm not a huge fan of Garbage, but I do love the theme song and the opening
Yeah.
sequence. Fantastic. I will defend this movie thoroughly. I quite like this one.
Yeah, this one was definitely the world plot wasn't as, I mean, oil is always relevant, always been relevant for like 50 years, but
Yeah,
50, 70 years, whatever. Not quite as like relevant and interesting as Tomorrow Never Dies, but definitely a better executed movie. More interesting villains,
yeah,
things like that. So,
yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
talking through it, I definitely remember a lot of things I liked about it. Okay, now Die Another Day. Oof. This one is
Awful.
this one kind of goes off the cliff, just like the later Roger Moore movies went. This is
Fucking
Brosnan's
terrible.
Moonraker. This is Brosnan's Moonraker.
No,
But
no, no, no. See, Moonraker was redeemable. Moonraker was entertaining. This is fucking Diamonds Are Forever for Brosnan. I hate this movie.
it's not a good
I
movie.
despise this movie. It's
The,
terrible.
the things I like about the movie, Ice Castle, kind of cool.
Eh,
I really like Rosamund R- Rosamund Pike. Is that her name? Was that was it Rosamund? Or am I getting people mixed up? The
uh, for who?
she's one of the Rosamund Pike Diner of the Day. Yeah, she was in there. She was
Okay.
the non Halle Berry. Um,
Love and Trust.
yeah, she's Frost. She was Frost in this.
Right.
I liked her in this. Toby Steffens, I didn't really know who he was at the time, but if you ever watch Black Sails, he's an awesome actor. I love him,
I did.
especially as
I
he's
saw a little
matured.
bit of Black Sails. That was fun.
Yeah,
That was fun.
he's really good in that. He's very dislikable in this, but this also doesn't this have that really good sword fighting scene, like one of the best sword fighting
It
scenes
does.
in
It does.
film.
Like right in the
Yeah,
beginning with Madonna, and they're fighting over Madonna or something. Like
something
Madonna
like
did the
that.
theme song.
But
Yeah.
like
Um.
like they
Okay.
smash
Yeah. Go
things,
on.
knock things over, like really like physical sword fight scene.
Aggressive.
Yeah, very aggressive, very well
Yeah.
choreographed and everything like that.
All right.
So it's got some good things,
Let me
but
lay
over.
out. Let me lay out like some of the key points of why this movie's fucking awful.
Yeah.
First of all, I understand that, and I say this thoroughly. I love John Cleese, and I think that he was a good replacement. But this is also the first movie where Q is gone because the actor Desmond, I can't remember his last name now. He unfortunately passed away when they were doing the World's Not Enough.
Yeah, that was sad.
As much as I really like R, I think that John Cleese kind of chews up the scenery a little bit in his scenes when he's interacting with Brosnan with the whole gadgets thing, because John Cleese goes into John Cleese mode where he kind of plays it up a little bit, and rather than being a straight man to Bond's smug jokes, he
Yeah,
just kind of, he's playing a role. It doesn't come off quite as good. Since we're talking about that, the fucking invisible car.
the Invisible Car was
It is
super
the
cool.
it is the it transcended the believability of Bond gadgets to just
You think
like,
so?
it is so stupid. Yes, it's so stupid. I hated it. I hated this stupid invisibility cloak bullshit that they put in the car. It was just so dumb. even for a spy movie where you have gadgets that seem somewhat believable, you're telling me that a government has access to literal refracting technology, and they're going to put it on an Aston Martin rather than militarize it or keep it as this guarded. Somebody, all they have to do is steal the damn thing, and you can reverse engineer it. And what it, and it just doesn't play a big role in the movie either. He hides in it, and flips on the
I
invisibility, and
I thought the
I
way
hate
that
this thing.
I thought the special effects was really well done. I kind of got the
The
idea
special
that
effects work, yeah.
yeah, I got the idea that what it had is it basically had optical sensors on one side. They basically like
Yeah,
panels on one side and and cameras on the other. So it like would take a picture of west side and portray and project it on east side, vice versa. So it
yeah.
had that very like rough look around it. Like it would get very just it would like you said
But it didn't look
refractive and
rough.
stuff like that.
It didn't look rough. It was like a sheen. It was like anime future tech in the movie. It was so unbelievable.
I think distinctly he said that to the lazy eye it was nearly invisible.
Yeah.
Let's see, invisible Aston Martin. Let me see if I can find a photo of it. But
All right. Well, while you do that, I'm gonna keep ranting about how much
sure,
I hate this movie.
yeah,
The theme song was terrible. I like some of Madonna's '80s stuff. This song is not one of the things that I like. This theme song was awful, awful theme song. And let me talk about the moronic plot. So you have the son of a general from North Korea who undergoes plastic surgery to become an Englishman who then infiltrates it on behalf of North Korea so that he can what was it? To get North Korea to go through the demilitarized zone and oh no, it was the satellite system that can provide year-long sunshine to grow crops or destroy the minefields of the demilitarized zone, so that way North Korea can invade South Korea. So at the end, you have this big reveal of Toby Stevens going up to this Korean general, saying, "Don't you recognize me, father?" No, no, of course he doesn't, because you completely changed your ethnicity from a Korean man into a white man. Why would he recognize you? That is so
I didn't even remember
fucking
that. That's pretty
stupid.
stupid.
Yeah, it was the dumb. We're gonna
Yeah,
have year-long sunshine to grow our crops and get rid of the minefields, the demilitarized zone. That way we can invade. This movie's so dumb.
yeah. A couple of gadgets were kind of fun. The car has sort of a distortion effect. It's
Yeah,
way too accurate for to be considered anything but science fiction.
that's yeah.
But I didn't remember the whole Korean thing. I thought the sword fight was good.
Sword fight was fun.
The whole laser chase through the glaciers that was pretty over the top and silly, and like there was surfing or something as well. Really dumb. Like third act was absolutely just
Yeah, but see, this is what I'm
ridiculous.
talking about. See how shiny and like gleaming it is. It feels so over the top for me, and not in
Yeah.
a way like where it's like in Moonraker where it was campy, but at least it was still somewhat bound together by an internal logic. This just kind of like let's throw everything at the movie and see what sticks.
Yeah, this is definitely over the top kind of craziness. I some good images. Let me see. Some good images and stuff like that. But yeah, overall, not the greatest film. Not even probably the worst Brosnan film by
Yeah,
a good margin. The plot was ridiculous. A couple of the settings and stuff like that were cool. Like I like the idea of having like a livable ice castle, you know. But
which
like
doesn't exist actually. Which
it
actually
does.
it does not exist. Tourists actually went to the Iceland location hoping that they could stay at the ice hotel, but it doesn't exist.
Yeah, I thought they've made some ice structures, but yeah, it was pretty far fetched, especially the laser. I believe there was a shot. It's imprinted in my mind because I saw this in the theaters. Die Another Day. Day. Honestly, I didn't like Halle Berry in this either. They were going to do they're talking about doing a spin-off
No,
series with her. She wasn't very good in that. Um, she was
I
just Halle
like Halle
Berry.
Berry, but like she just seems to be like hit or miss, you know? Like half her
Yeah,
movies are great, half of them are just like terrible. Like, notwithstanding Catwoman, which, she at least had the decency to get her golden raspberry. herself, but
Yeah, she got it herself and she made fun of the movie. Like that was like, yeah, I liked her in that part. But yeah, this was the famous as like the glaciers are being melted. I believe this is while the glaciers are being melted by laser beams from the sky. He's like surfing down like melted glacier while escaping, and yeah, it's. I remember my step grandmother saw it. And she's like, "This is over the top." I'm like,
yeah,
"Yeah, that's a good way to put it."
yeah, just it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a
It's
bit
so ridiculous.
a bit crazy, but yeah. So definitely Brosnan's weakest one, and probably caused him to leave. I'm guessing too. Um,
I don't know. I don't know if it caused him to leave or if it was just his contract ran out, or I can look into that.
yeah, it'd be interesting to find out. The end of the
Because then we
day,
do have a massive gap. Well, not a massive, but a pretty big gap between the next movie.
yeah, one of the biggest gaps actually since the film started. What do you think in Doctor Nope or Double O Nothing for Die End of the Day?
Double O nothing. Double O nothing. I fucking hate this movie.
Like it's got some really bad things, but I did like a couple of the fights. I don't
If
know.
you want to put it up there, that's fine. I do not care for it. So
Yeah, there's a couple of films. There's another one coming up here where I'm like, oh, it's just on that line there. I can't decide. I'll say Double or Nothing for now, but we could put it higher. It's a shame because that sword fight is actually awesome. In a better movie, that'd be a fantastic action scene. But
you know. So basically, from what it was fired after this movie.
oh
He was approaching his 50th birthday. He kept in mind that fans and critics were very unhappy with Roger Moore playing the role until he was 58. He was 58 when he did that last movie.
yeah, he was definitely past
Um,
the prime.
but he was enthusiastic for because he was getting a lot of popular support. He considered himself, but in 2004, he just considered himself dismissed from the role. He said in an interview that basically he was fired, saying that uh, Barbara Broccoli and Michael Wilson were on the line on the phone. They're like, "We're so sorry." She was crying. Michael was stoic. He said, "You were a great James Bond. Thank you very much." And he said, "Thank you very much. Goodbye." And that's it. He was shocked and he was just like kicked to the curb.
That's so
So
weird.
he was getting older, and yeah, that's it.
I'm gonna take just a second to show the audience here. This is Pierce Brosnan, 1986. Quite possibly the most handsome man alive. My God, 1986, year after I was born. This guy was like, just put this on the as the definition of handsome. This guy was really good looking. It's funny that he didn't get to be Bond until like 10 years after that, but yeah, he is in his 50s by the time he's quit. That's funny.
Yeah, he was 50 when he did that last movie. A man's 67 right now.
Yeah, he's still rocking it though. I mean, he's got the kind of silver fox thing going on.
Yeah, in 2019. Yeah, he's still there.
So yeah, there was a good okay, it seems a lot longer than 4 years, but yeah, there was a 4 year gap between Die Another Day and Casino Royale, and this was the second. Actually, they brought the same director back to reboot it, as they did with GoldenEye. This guy's been like the Bond rebooter, I guess.
Hmm.
But this was a definite shift, another really big shift for the franchise. I'm going to get a lot of hate for this. I'm not crazy about Daniel Craig as Bond, but I think that this was is probably his most energetic Bond role. I think he was definitely had the physicality in this role, less so in his later films, but
Yeah,
overall, I like the
he's not my
class.
favorite Bond either.
No, but I like the classic. The Casino Royale is actually very loosely based on one of the original Ian Fleming novels, and we kind of missed that part. But after a while, they just kind of gave up. They're just like, we don't need to use the novels anymore. Let's just make up our own stories. I think right around the
Yep.
Dalton films, I think License to Kill is one of the ones that weren't based on any material. I don't know if you could correct me on that, but
As far as I know, they stopped with the end of the Roger Moore films
mhm.
because I know the Dalton movies were original
Yeah.
entirely.
Yeah, so they're definitely different, but Casino Royale seemed like a good, a much needed like let's scale it back. Let's have some
Yeah,
casino stuff. Let's have Bond punch some folks. Let's have a threatening villain. Like it was just getting over the top against this. You need to kind of pull it back some. And I think Casino Royale is what we needed for that.
yeah.
Um,
It's a good reboot for the same reason that I was praising GoldenEye.
yeah,
That was a good reboot. I think Casino Royale was also a solid reboot. It just did some things I didn't like because it kind of did toy with the continuity. I think that GoldenEye was a great reboot because it played into the continuity and then it continued the story as it wasn't really missing a beat. With Casino Royale, they purposely went out of the way and tried to frame it. Oh, it was Bond's first mission. Okay, as if it's his first mission, then why do you still have Judi Dench playing M? Right? From a
yeah.
continuity perspective, it was just all over the place, and that's really brought it down for me a number of times.
Yeah, the continuity was pretty much borked by that point. But apparently they loved Judi Dench, so they kept her. I never really stood her that much. She's kind of always played
Oh,
a very
I
bitter.
love Judi Dench. I love Judi Dench. She's great.
Okay, she fulfills her purpose. I actually, one of the later Craig movies actually completely redeemed her in my eyes, and she actually became like a human character that I actually cared about.
Mm.
So I'll say that at the beginning, not so much in my book, but
Oh, before I forget, I just want to mention, and speaking of continuity, one nod that I loved in continuity, and when I was talking about the trilogy with the Brosnan, with the Dalton movies, and with On His Majesty's Secret Service, there's a
mhm.
line in License to Kill where Bond is at the wedding, and he's just kind of talking with Felix Leiter and his bride, and he leaves, and she asks like, "Oh, what's wrong with him?" And Felix Leiter responds with, "Oh, he was married once, but it was a really long time ago."
Oh,
Like,
interesting. Yeah, there's a little bit of continuity there.
exactly. So there's that level of continuity. So for all of the movies up until this point, we have that Bond is the same person.
Yeah.
It's a saga. This breaks all that. This utterly shatters it.
Yeah, and I remember being disappointed because the trailer for this was fantastic. I don't remember if you remember the trailer for Casino Royale. It
I
seemed
don't.
like a really, really gritty, like it showed that kind of black and white scene where he's like beating the guy against the toilets and stuff like that in
Oh
the
yeah.
bathrooms and stuff, and it was like showed him in like in the dark and he's like, holding a gun to him in the shadows. Like this is like almost straight up noir Bond. This looks really classic, really like really awesome. Unfortunately, that was the teaser that only really lasted for a good couple minutes, and then it became more traditional Bond stuff. But
Yeah.
I was really like that style at the beginning. That style really kind of teased at something. I would like a retro Bond, Bond set in the 60s or something like that that has like sort of a classic grain or black and white or something like that. Personally, I think that'd be really cool, but they didn't really stick with that style. They just kind of went to more traditional. I will say Eva Green's a really good, very multifaceted. I wouldn't even call her a Bond girl. Like she's technically a Bond girl, but she's like a really big player in all the events of the film.
Yeah.
And Lashif is also excellent in this film. And the guy I forget his name, but the guy that they casted is uh, God, you said it before. He's the guy who like
Oh,
his FBI contact. But he's like the FBI
Largo.
contact, the guy who like helps him out
Oh, Felix Leiter.
later.
Sorry,
Felix Leiter, yeah.
sorry. I thought you were talking about Largo, Emilio Largo.
And that's the same guy who eventually wasn't Felix Leiter the guy that actor eventually going to Westworld if I'm unless I'm going crazy. That's the same actor. Yeah, no, it's the
Okay, so
guy.
the guy who played Leiter in Casino Royale, you mean?
Yeah, yeah, in Casino Royale. Yeah, that actor would later go on to play a good character in at least early on in the Westworld reboot. Yeah, good, really good. I don't remember the theme song at all, Christopher Cornell, but good, solid reboot is what the series needed to get back on its feet. I think.
Yeah, it was a good step away, especially considering the flop that was Die Another Day, and to a larger extent, The World Is Not Enough. A lot of people didn't like that movie. I defend it vigorously.
Yeah.
But Casino Royale was definitely enough to kind of push the Bond and bring it to like the 2000s. Solid movie overall. Did not dislike it. Didn't care for a lot of the continuity mix-ups, what have you. But you know, I'd put it on Moneypenny. I'd put it on Moneypenny.
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe even go to Shaken Not Stirred.
I would put it up to Shaken because that last act was like, oof. That was a
Yeah,
gut punch, like visceral last act. Like it took a fairly mundane, like like poker games and stock manipulation, things like that, and then at the end you're like,
yeah,
oh my god, like bam, bam, bam. So
yeah,
I
and
think
it
I
was,
think the ending really elevated it up to a higher,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I can agree with that. It's like I think the thing that holds it back for me mostly is just the way they handled the reboot, which is why it's just kind of like less
yeah,
thrilling, I guess, or less of a film. But I think Mads Mikkelsen does a great job. Eva Green is phenomenal in it. And honestly, the theme song is okay. I wish that they did something more casino-y related. Chris Cornell, love Chris Cornell, love his stuff.
oh yeah,
But
rip
he did
Chris
a song
Cornell.
called "You Know My Name," which I get why you're doing it if it's a Bond reboot, but the fact that it's a reboot, it's why are you why? It's just
Yeah, yeah, it was a bit. I've always been a little bit iffy on I think that the best Bond songs are sung by females. I don't know, for some reason it really captures that kind of
yeah,
classic sound. There's been a
I agree. I
ones like Live
agree.
and Let Die was fun, but yeah, the most iconic James Bond intros I think were always sung by a woman. I think that just it really captures that feel.
Yeah.
I'm just going to gush a little bit about the design. The promo and marketing for this film is fantastic. Whoever realized that they could line up Casino Royale and do 007 with the gun right there, you're awesome. You deserve a
Oh,
raise.
that's not new. They did that with the poster of the very first Roger Moore film
Did they?
with Roger. Yeah, Roger and then Moore. They did the exact same thing with
Oh,
Roger Moore.
okay. Well, I'll skip that, but they did really good here. So,
Yeah. Well, no, I like it. Don't get me wrong. Don't mean to rain on your parade,
yeah.
but yeah, I did notice that with the more stuff. Fun fact: Daniel Craig, he is the first actor to play James Bond who's actually younger than the series itself. He was born in 1968, which is 6 years after Doctor No.
Oh man, that's funny.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
yeah, he was also homeless at one point. He actually went homeless while he was struggling, and eventually became a world famous actor. So there you
good
go.
on
There's always an opportunity to go up in the world.
good on him. Good on him.
Cool. And so now we're getting toward the more recent ones. I think we'll both be in agreement that Quantum of
Quantum,
Solace was just such a waste.
awful,
Such a
awful.
waste.
Okay, so I know that the movie has something to do with a water supply or water or something like that.
Set in the
It was
desert.
hard to follow.
Yeah, this is what really threw me off of the film, right? Uh, Even in this list we're using to like refresh our memory on the details of the Bond films,
Yeah,
they have like director, villain, henchman, Bond girl, Bond actor,
yeah,
all these other details like cars, gadgets, and stuff like that, right?
yeah,
This movie tripped me up so hard. About 30 minutes or 40 minutes into the film, they introduce the villain. I don't even remember his name, but they introduce
Dominic Green. I just looked it up.
yeah, Dominic Green. They introduce him. I'm like, oh, interesting. I wonder who he's working for. And then about 45 minutes in, I'm like, oh, interesting. Okay, let's find out who he's working for. About an hour in, I'm like, yeah, okay, wow, this is really building up. It's going to be an awesome reveal when they find out who the villain is. And then when they leave him out to die in the desert and give him like oil to live on, and he ends up like dying, I guess, from drinking oil out of desperation or whatever. I'm like, he was the villain? That's literally my reaction. I had no idea that he wasn't the henchman.
Yeah.
He had zero villain presence. I'm sorry, Dominic Green. You're a great. You did your role fine, I guess. He did not seem like a villain to me at
It was
all.
just yeah. It was just such a dumb movie. And I also like I also take umbrage with the fucking title. What does Quantum of Solace mean?
Yeah, that title was like okay. That's like a yeah, no.
Like
Next.
what is a quantum? Yeah, like I know quantum mechanics barely. Like I kind of know what it means, but a quantum. Okay,
By far the deepest and most
so
pretentious title of the whole
okay,
series.
so by literal definition, a quantum is in physics the minimum amount of any physical entity involved in an interaction. It is the minimum amount of any physical entity involved in an interaction. So the minimum amount of effort something is involved in when it interacts with something else.
And solace is comfort or consolation in time of distress
Yeah.
or sadness. So the minimum amount of comfort and consolation in a time of distress. So like he's small happy.
He's small happy. I guess because I guess it all like comes off because Eva Green's character is killed, right?
Yeah, I
And he wants
guess.
revenge for her or something, and but he takes some solace in the effort that I guess he takes solace in the effort that he undergoes to get revenge for her.
I guess, but
Uh,
as much as they reference Eva Green's character, as much as they reference Eva Green's character, I believe they do in the beginning. It doesn't really play out much. I think he's like on like a like finding out who she was working with and who she made a deal with, and sort of leads to the lame villain. But yeah, no, overall it was a very disappointing film, especially after what
utterly.
I consider a pretty strong start with uh, Casino Royale. This was definitely a big step down from Casino Royale.
Yeah, like a massive step down to the point where I just think this movie's terrible. There's very little or anything redeeming of it. This is a double o nothing as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's just really bland. Like I said, I was completely taken aback by the henchman who I thought it was a henchman, but was actually the full-on villain, and there was nobody he was working for. I was just like, eh, yeah, definitely one of my least favorite movies. Like
Yeah.
from a production standpoint, I remember there was a couple like long take action scenes where he's like falling through the roof or like driving motorcycles over like roofs and stuff like that. Some really good stunts, but overall, in support of a very poor
Yeah.
film.
Yeah. Yeah. Easily.
All right, so now we're getting to the last two, and man, this runs
Oh
the
wait, but
spectrum. Yep,
yeah, before we do that, remember the Quantum of Solace video game? That terrible cover
it's like
shooter that they released?
Xbox 360 or something like that.
Oh yeah. Yep.
I never played it. I heard about it. They keep on like pushing this like this will be a real video game based on a franchise, and James Bond is the problem with the James Bond games is they're like they could make a good game. Remember GoldenEye? You know, you always like remember GoldenEye. They could make another good one, but most of them
Remember the PlayStation or the what is it, seventh generation or sixth generation trilogy that were not based on the films
like
between
Nightfire and stuff. Yeah, those are actually good.
Nightfire, Agent Under Fire, and the other one.
Yeah,
I can't
those
remember right now.
Yeah, those were actually solid games, and yeah, it seemed like the further you move, those are actually the best licensed games when you take a movie character and make an original plot, like
Yeah, easily.
Terminator, Resistance, Mad Max 2015, uh, freaking Escape from Butcher Bay, Chronicles
Yeah,
of Riddick. Like those are all like
oh,
based on a movie character, but completely divorced from that timeline. You just make your own thing. Don't bother releasing it near the movie. Just take your time, make a good film that's good movie that's connected to the characters of the film, but as a new story, new everything. Don't
yeah,
try to be a movie release date tie-in because that'll just end in disaster.
yeah.
Uh,
All right,
so
so Skyfall.
Skyfall is a tough one. It probably is the most meta James Bond film I've ever seen, like or
Mm,
that exists. Like it has a lot of commentary about Bond as a character. He's
mm,
aging. He's not who he used to be. Almost somewhat of a like a commentary on Daniel Craig as well, because Craig's now in his third film. The last one didn't do so well. Not quite what he used to be. You know, he's flawed. A couple of scenes early on where he's like training and like you know like yeah, we'll do those questions later, and then after somebody
mm,
leaves he's like like he's like completely out of breath, like he's trying to hold on to the physicality he once had. Like those were
mm,
really impactful scenes for me. And Sam Mendes is a visionary director. Like his cinematography is always really immaculate. Like it's a very beautiful film. Like the shots with like the reflective, like there was one scene where it's like a bunch of glass with like uh, LCD screens reflecting all off of them. There's like a fight scene.
mm,
Like he can make a really beautiful shot. Like every single shot in this
yeah,
movie is just really really beautiful. And it's
mm,
actually the one movie that made me care about new M, Judi Dench. Like I actually cared about her as a person. You got to see a little more like personality. Uh, Daniel Craig felt more like a human being. You know, we saw a little bit of that in Casino Royale with his relationship
mm,
with Eva, but like you get a lot more of like a morally gray world. You know, terrorist bombings and like it was a character study of James Bond as a person, which I thought
mm,
was really interesting. So I think that uh, it it may not have been the most epic of adventures, but it was a really meta and much needed exploration of James Bond as a character.
So I agree with you. I actually really, really, really liked Skyfall because of all those reasons.
Yeah,
It now I already loved M more than you did. So the way that they wove her story in and walked her retirement out of it with again the rogue MI6 agent
yeah,
masterfully played by Bardium, who was incredible.
Barnum's great. Yeah,
And and I also liked that they took Moneypenny away from the secretary role and made her a field agent. Right? She was no
yeah,
longer M's secretary. Now she's a field agent. They actually gave her something to do, other than just being somebody to banter with Bond every so often. Which I like that role, but definitely evolve the character.
yeah,
And the reason that I feel Skyfall is as meta as it is now we're problem with James Bond. And this is going to be exacerbated a little bit in Spectre
yeah.
because
I got
we're
some strong feelings for Spectre. Yeah,
because now we're running into a new problem in that where do you take the character from here on in? And I had this conversation with a friend of mine a little while ago. At some point they need to retire the James Bond character because you've already been there and done that with everything that he's had. GoldenEye was brilliant because it took this Cold War character and moved it away from the Cold War into a new era. And they tried to do that with Casino Royale. And Casino Royale, strong movie, but in order to reboot that character, they had to make this gritty film. What do you do? What do you do with him from here on out? They bring Spectre back in the next movie, but at what point, like where do you go with this character? And I think those early tinges, you're seeing that in Skyfall, which is
yeah,
why they have this meta commentary of this broken character and his childhood past and blah 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 on this. And like the entire veneer is starting to like crack at the seams.
yeah. Skyfall was such a high point that I don't think that it will ever see anything as good as that. Like it perfectly like I remember when we were talking about GoldenEye, where M was criticizing James Bond as being like a Cold War dinosaur, sexist,
Yeah,
whatever, and
yeah,
this is like another kind of retaliatory thing against James Bond. He is older. His methods are too brutish. His way of getting things done is old school. It's too violent. We have new methods, new technologies, things like that, right? But when the whole new system comes crashing down, you need James Bond, you need the dinosaur, you need the guy with the gun to get things
yeah,
done. And I think that's as much criticism as the character gets at the beginning, and also in previous films like GoldenEye. This also redeems him because we need that beast, we need that
hmm
guy who's willing to punch and shoot his way to victory because when everything else comes crashing down, when all the modern systems get completely undermined by hackers and whatnot, it was he's the one weapon that is reliable. He's your hammer. When your power drill and your everything else breaks, you need the hammer. The hammer is the reliable thing that will get the job done, basically.
yeah,
So I really like that redemption of his character, and yeah, the exploration of it, of his relationship with M, and like little peeks into his history because we never got his childhood or anything like that in the other
hmm
films. The new M, he's fine. He's a little bit, a little bit.
yeah.
I
Ray
I, I
Fiennes, yeah. I
yeah.
think I think I think he's an excellent M.
Or no,
To
oh,
be fair.
sorry. I actually love Ray Fiennes as M. Sorry, I meant Q, the new Q.
Oh yeah, the new QQ's okay. He's
He's fine.
quirky.
He's a little
Yeah,
he's a little Weasley, whatever. But
yeah.
I was gonna
He's
actually
okay.
comment.
It's a different dynamic though.
Yeah, like my favorite moment. I was gonna actually comment about this when you're talking about Q and R. Like I love John Cleese to death, but
Yeah,
John Cleese was way more comedic. When you were spot on the money, Q was the straight man.
yeah.
Q would be like, and this James Bond is a so and so. He's like, oh, and he like lasers something. And it's like, would you put that down? All this kind of
Would you
stuff, right?
put that away? We're
Yeah,
still working on it. And please be careful with the car. It's just got a new coat of paint.
yeah. I love that dynamic. Like my favorite Q moment of all time was like after he shows. I think it was Pierce Brosnan. I think he's like shows him a bunch of different gadgets and gizmos and weapons and stuff like that. And it's like, and Brosnan's like, so what's this then? And it's like, put that down. That's my lunch.
Lunch.
Yeah. It was just a great dynamic, and I didn't really get that. It was all right. The reimagining of Q is kind of like a brainiac, like nerdy kind of guy, but I actually love Ray Fiennes as M, at least in this, as a hint of what could come in this one. And it's also it's weirdly like almost a return back to like the Connery Moore days because we're back to a male M. It's almost gone full circle now. It's really interesting how it's like a full circle. If the series ended on Skyfall, I would actually be okay with it. Like it's that much of a closure of the whole
Yeah.
James Bond arc. So
And I think that if that was the final James Bond movie that we ever got, that would be an excellent punctuation to the series.
yeah, so I think because it has so much character explanation, it made me care about Judi Dench, which is incredible. It has a really good arc. It gets a little bit into like James Bond Home Alone toward the end, but at least it gets creative. They have to go old school. They go away from technology when technology fails them. It makes
Yep.
sense.
Mhm.
So I would put it in golden tier. What about you?
I wouldn't put it quite in golden tier. I would put it in shaken, personally. I think it's a solid movie, but I do not think that it's quite the spectacle. Like, it's a solid ending if we're gonna be looking at it as an ending, but it's just some of what it does. It feels like it's a continuation of the same kind of like bond that you're getting with the Craig
Yeah,
movies. It just feels like it's not quite that same level of tightly written, um, very closely crafted films that you had with the previous eras. And as much as we were praising Skyfall, and as much as I like it, there's something about it that's just missing for me to like think of it as like an all-time classic, right?
interesting. Yeah,
I think some of the things it did was like for shock, not shock value. I think that's the wrong phrase, but definitely some of the plot elements were there to shock, right? I think.
yeah. It was trying to be very like deconstructive and really pick apart
Yeah.
these characters. Interesting enough, I realized that the gap between Quantum and Skyfall is the same gap between Die Another Day and Casino Royale. 4 years. Isn't that kind of
Wow.
wild? Yeah. So they actually probably that's probably why it ended up being so good is they actually kind of took their time to really think of how to fix this franchise. So I personally would do Golden. You're shaken. Do you want to flip a coin on it?
I mean, if you want to put it on Golden, like I said, it's your list. You put it on Golden. Go ahead.
I mean, I like to be all right. Heads or tails?
I'll take Tails.
All right. Flip again. Flip tails. Okay. So let's
All right,
put
so
this on put
shaken.
this on shaken then. Okay. And Spectre, double nothing. No, just joking.
Now, I'll be perfectly honest. I haven't finished this movie.
You not finished
I
it?
actually did not finish it. I've seen like segments of it. I've seen bits and pieces of it. I haven't actually seen it from start to finish.
It's
But I do know enough. I do know enough of the plot where, first of all, I'm going to say this. I love Christoph Waltz. I think
he's a
Christoph
great
Waltz
actor.
is a
Yeah.
great actor. And I think like on paper he makes an excellent Blofeld. But when you have the plot come in and say, "Hey, those last three movies, that was us the whole time," it just,
Yeah, you know what it reminds me of? Did you watch the Lethal Weapon movies back in the day?
oh yeah, I love those
Remember
movies.
Lethal Weapon 2 was like, remember your wife, she died in a crash? That was us.
Yeah,
We crashed into her car to kill
yeah,
your
yeah,
wife
yeah,
because you're getting too
yeah,
close to our plots. And it's like,
yeah.
come on, really?
Oh, it's so dumb.
Yeah,
That's the one blemish on an otherwise excellent movie. It's just like, oh yeah, we're the ones who
yeah.
killed your wife.
Yeah, it's like, remember that random accident that had nothing to do with anything 10 years ago? That was us. It's just like,
Yeah.
it's an easy way to write, easy way to like make something seem more important than it really was. Like, I don't think that they had any semblance of an idea that that this was all, Spectre behind the scenes with Quantum and especially with, yeah, it seemed pretty ham-fisted. But
Yeah.
I do like Christoph Waltz. Well, part of the reason why this movie is such a mess is that famously, after the success, like the extreme success from Skyfall, people were like, "This Skyfall's great," getting like nominations, things like that. They're like, "Let's
Mhm.
make another James Bond movie," and so they were so excited that they started building sets and starting. I think they started filming it before they had a script. I
Mhm.
remember reading this, like they started heavy production before they even had a script done. So they
Yeah.
like were picking out locations and set pieces and actors and stuff, and they didn't have a freaking story done. So
Right.
Spectre is like such a all over the place. It starts out like Mexican Day of the Dead. It goes into like Swedish resort or whatever it was, or French resort, and then like all over the place. Like there were just like set pieces, set pieces. Felt like a video game plot, you know.
Mhm. Yep.
So
And then even then, like this movie is like a massive regression. Remember how I was just saying, like, hey, it's really great that they had Moneypenny actually be a field agent and take her away from the secretary role. They put her back as a secretary.
oh no,
She had one movie where she left the field and became M's assistant. So we're back to square one. And
yeah, and
again, I like the role, but it's like you're doing something new. This was actually interesting that you're doing with the character. Like, what the hell?
yeah, I always liked the there were some stronger and there were some weaker portrayals of Moneypenny, but I always liked the kind of Moneypenny was an interesting character because she would always like there would be like the two-way flirting between Bond and Moneypenny,
Yeah,
but at the end she knows that he's just a horn dog, and so she shouldn't
yeah.
get with him anyway. So there's always an interesting kind of fun dynamic between the two. But I
Hmm.
actually think the way that they brought Moneypenny into the field and it actually triggers uh, the biggest events of Skyfall when she actually like take the shot kind of thing. Like
Yep.
she and
Yep.
that creates a whole other dynamic where he goes off the grid and he's like rethinking his life and his loyalties and stuff like that. So that was a really interesting aspect. But yeah, to kind of go bring her back to the secretary after that, it's like kind of weak.
Yep. And also, I will say this. I like the character of Mr. Hicks. It's impossible for me to look at him and not think like Dave Batista has no reason. He looks so out of place in this movie.
Some of the fight scenes were really brutal, like a lot of like heavy like weighty fighting, which I always
Yeah.
appreciate when movies do that.
Yeah.
Like you get a lot of that in like the John Wick movies and got a lot of that in like Mad Max 2015 and stuff like that. But uh, the plot was so disconnected that I had no idea what was going on most of the time.
Yeah.
It was like this is the snow level. This is
Yeah.
this is the the Day of the Dead Mexico level. And
Yeah.
I to this day I have no idea what that poster's about. Like you see the
So
skeleton on the poster.
yeah. It's just yeah, Day of the Dead, right? But it's all over the place. Just this comment about Dave Batista in there again as Mr. Hicks, right?
Yeah.
Um, this is a Reddit comment, a series of Reddit comments. Top guy's like he's like thumbs instead of jaws because
He's like thumbs.
he's
Thumbs.
like thumbs instead of jaws because he like sticks his thumbs into the guy's eyes, right? It was a
Yeah.
huge missed opportunity not naming him thumbs or some stupid pun. Thumb job. There you go.
Thumb job. There you go. Yeah, yeah. No, I enjoyed the action. He was a very physical performance.
Yeah.
It was like it was intimidating, and Batista's a big dude, so
Yes, yeah.
it was a very kind of brutal. Actually, reminded me of like some of the better fights in the Bourne series as well. They had some really kind of like very little music, just like really brutal like struggle fights. And
Yeah.
the Bourne series, those are the highlights of those movies. It got
Yeah.
pretty redundant toward the end, but I like
The
that. But yeah,
physical
there was just
presence was excellent.
which one was that? Sorry, what'd you say?
No, the physical presence for those fights,
Yeah, yeah.
awesome. It was great. It's just it's hard for me to like look at it and think like, what's Batista doing here? He just looks a little out of place. That's all.
Yeah, and I wasn't really like, obviously she looks the part, but I wasn't really feeling the romantic interest. Like I think they fall in love too quickly, and it's like, eh. And then,
Yeah.
but they kind of did like a sort of. You can either go like one or two ways with a villain reveal. Either you go really, really dramatic and like, oh my God, this is the villain, or you do it kind of like mellow and nonchalant. And they kind of went that way
Mhm.
with the Blofeld reveal. And
Yeah.
Christoph Waltz could, he could act his way out of prison, but he, I didn't feel that he was particularly threatening. He
No.
didn't Like he almost seemed like he could potentially be an ally. It was very weird. Like it was a strange like not a good like morally gray kind of it was just he didn't seem like a very bad guy you
Hmm.
know whereas you see some of the villains and you're like wow this is a really twisted individual oh I really want to see him go down. Like I didn't really feel that way with Christoph Waltz. Like I think the opening scene of Inglourious Bastards is probably one of the best scenes ever filmed in like
Hmm.
American cinema, but yeah, I wasn't really feeling it. It just too disconnected. Obviously, they rushed. Like they had 3 years to make this film, but they rushed into the production. They were starting to like do, locations and sets and everything before they even had a story, and
Yeah.
it definitely shows.
Yeah. No, I didn't see this, but I read this afterwards because one thing that kind of bothered me about the movie was that the look of Blofeld was wrong because it's just he lacks the eye scar. He still has his hair. He looks like Christoph Waltz basically.
Yeah,
Apparently, they do weave that into the ending. Like, there's an explosion that gives him a facial scar, and he's going to be back in no time to die. So, once again, Spectre's back, right?
yeah,
So, I don't know. I have mixed feelings on it. Hopefully, hopefully the next movie is going to be a little stronger with that back and forth villainry of it. But this is also going to be the last Daniel Craig movie, which means that they're going to have to reboot it again.
yeah. I don't unless they've from what I've seen of Die Another Day or whatever it is. No, wait, that was the two.
No
That was the
time to
Brosnan.
die. No
No Time
time
to
to
Die.
die.
Yeah, No Time to Die. I don't have high hopes for it. It looks like it's very troubled. I don't like really what they're doing with the characters, and it seems it, like it hates the character. You know what I mean? Like it actually hates the
Yeah.
character of James Bond, which I'm fine with like a story that like criticizes a character and like and you
Hmm.
know shows their flaws, brings out their failures, and then they have a redemption arc. That I don't see that. I think this is just like a way to capitalize on the James Bond name without written by people who don't like James Bond as a character. This just seems
Hmm.
very, very cynical. I don't know. I don't get good vibes from that movie. I hope I'm wrong, but I just also
Yeah.
want to point out that when this was released, people thought it was a joke. They thought this poster was a joke. The
Yeah.
the
Hey guys, Baron
Halloween mask.
Samby's back.
Yeah. Baron Smith, he's lost a few pounds since then, but looking a little bony.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm hoping that that's not the case because like the co-write this okay, so it's being written by Purvis and Robert Wade. They're the screenwriters who wrote 7 Bond films from The World Is Not Enough up until this. So they wrote the entire Daniel Craig era and the end of the Brosnan era. So there is that level of familiarity with Bond. Um, I know that the director, he's the one who did the first season of True Detective, which was awesome.
Yeah, I know. What's his name? I know the guy you're talking about that is a
Kei
Japanese name.
Joji Fukunaga.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Carrie Carrie Joji Fukunaga.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Kerry Fukunaga. He's a fantastic director. I love the first season of True Detective.
that's the best one.
Yeah, well, that was so exceptional because one writer, one director, the whole season felt
Hmm.
like a long movie.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, I love his direction. I'm really concerned about the way it's handling the character. I know that yeah, we'll see. Maybe it'll be great. I'm just yeah, I don't know. They brought
yeah.
the Fleabag writer in as a supplemental writer to like criticize the character more, and I'm like, that's not James Bond. I'm sorry.
I think that if anything, this very well might be the last Bond movie. They're going to maybe very well kill off the character and then come up with spin-off movies, which I think is fine. Do a
Yeah,
spin-off series. I have no problem with that. Just don't reboot the character.
yeah,
Remember when the poster came out and there's a lot shit because they're like, "Oh no, James Bond is going to be played by a black woman." It's like,
yeah.
well, there's no reason to recast James Bond as a black woman. Just make a new character, and I think
It's a
that that's perfectly acceptable because now that's going to open up so many doors for you to continue telling these kinds of stories, but without the attachment of this old character and without the baggage of that old character.
yeah.
You know?
I'm fine with them expanding the universe and creating
Yeah.
another Double O character or whatever you want to do with that. There's just no way you can convert a 1960s uh, hyper masculine
Spy,
ladies
like
man
oh, Cold War
British spy
spy.
Cold War spy with anything but what they've been doing. Like they've already stretched it to the limit. There's no way you can do that. I'm sorry, it's just not going to work. So you're
Yeah,
just doing it. You're just repurposing a brand for a different product at that point. You
yeah,
know.
exactly. Like, so
So
kill off Bond, have Lashana Lynch, have her character be the star of another series of films, have her be a double O agent, just have her be her own, her own character. And that's
yeah,
fine, man. They very well might do this, and this might be the end of that franchise, and they might reboot it. Who knows? We'll see. But I am curious to see where they're going to take the story, especially because we know this is Craig's last movie, and with
yeah.
Spectre leaving it open, it looks like they're just going to kind of pick it up again from the 60s, but I just don't know how they're going to do that because now we're seeing a James Bond where, what stories are you going to tell? Like, what's there left to explore?
Yeah, I was actually shocked that Daniel Craig did another Bond movie after Skyfall. He must have been offered a ton of money because I believe after Skyfall, he said his famous quote where he'd rather gouge his eyes out than play Bond again or something like that. I
Yeah.
remember I remember that he said something like that, and yeah, he must be getting a ton of money, man. That must be his reasoning. But yeah, 2015. When was Spectre? Uh,
Spectre was
or
2015.
yeah, 2015. So in
Yeah.
2015, Daniel Craig, I'd rather slash my wrist than play James Bond again.
Yeah.
So,
And No Time to Die. So I just looked it up. No Time to Die is almost 3 hours long. It's 163
oh
minutes.
man, yeah, I don't know.
Like, Jesus.
Yeah, it's also got delayed by COVID. It was supposed to come out, I think, last year. So yeah, who knows? It might be okay. I have a feeling it's going to be disappointing though.
Nah, we'll see. We'll
Spectre,
see.
a lot of
It's up to you. I never finished it, so this one's
yeah,
on you, buddy.
it was such a mixed bag. Like the plot needed to be redrafted completely, and some sort of through line needed to be figured out for that. It's also directed by Sam Mendes, and he did some good visuals. But even though there's some good visual scenes in Spectre, it still didn't reach the heights of Skyfall. So I don't think it's necessarily. It's a tough one because if this was shot back in the 60s, I would say like Doctor Nope material. But because
Hmm.
it's the newest one and looks and feels okay because it's new, it's probably coloring my perspective more. But from a storytelling point, it's one of the most broken of the
Mm,
Bond films, I think. So it wasn't a slog to get through. It was like enjoyable at times.
mm.
So I'm almost thinking just middle of the road. It wasn't
Okay.
wasn't it was very very poorly told, but it wasn't a pain to get through, which some of these are
Hmm.
as you get lower. Like yeah, I didn't enjoy watching Live and Let Die. That was just rough to get through. But Skyfall was like it's a movie.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
All right, well
Yeah, I haven't watched it, so I don't have an opinion.
it's worth watching. Like I said, like some of the action scenes were good, and Christopher Waltz is always entertaining, but it
Mhm.
didn't really have that kind of payoff that Skyfall had. Like I think Skyfall had a really good payoff toward the end. Like you just had a really good character
Mhm.
moments and growth and
Yeah.
change and stuff like that. It's kind of like what I said. Like the ones that like a lot of these movies seem like episodes where it's just like adventure done and then he's back to square zero. Like nothing's changed at the end. Where like
Mhm.
at the end of Skyfall he's not the same man as he is in the beginning. So
Yeah, for sure.
well, yeah, it's getting kind of late, but thanks so much, man, for coming on to this. I think we'll do this again sometime. This is kind of weird topic for we usually cover video games, but yeah, if we come up with any other, I'm just running out of
We have
ideas.
we have other likes other than video games. We're in hobbies. But yeah, thank you for having me on. I had a chatting with you for several hours as we debated on the James Bond uh series.
Yeah, we'll have to find some good other good topics and stuff like that. Like there's a plenty of things to cover, not just ranking, but discussions and
Yeah, I'd like to do a podcast or a stream with you where we're not using tier maker. Just throwing that out there sometime.
that's been two for two, hasn't it? Yeah. Well, we'll have to do like a commentary or just one-on-one chat sometime. But yeah, I know.
Yeah, for sure.
Tiermaker what's nice about Tiermaker is there's a structure to it, so it's kind of like a little meta game, but yeah, not the
Yeah,
most visually stimulating. I could say that.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
All right, man. Well, do you want to plug yourself? Do you want to say anything that what you're up to now, or?
Yeah, sure. So, I'm Shalashaska. I also make YouTube videos. You can actually see the spelling of my name done in its entire, completely correct on your screen. So, if you're into retro game reviews, if you're into the occasional editorial, come check out my channel. I'm currently working on a review that I'm not gonna speak too much about on, but it's an older game from a console from my childhood. That's right, a console game. That I've actually never played before, and I'm interested in delving into it. So I'm hoping to get a new video out soon in the midst of working on a much larger project. So
Cool. Yeah, no, looking forward to that. Otherwise, probably, I don't know if we'll do a podcast next week. I can't really plan out that far, but I might do live stream or whatever. We'll see. If we have a great
sure.
idea that comes up, I would be happy to do another one next week if you have the time. So
Yeah.
we'll play it by ear, and otherwise, I'll see you next week. And thanks so much for watching. Take care, guys.
Take care, everyone.